Please join me in flag salute. Stand. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Good morning. Commissioner Powers.
Here.
Commissioner Hauge.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Commissioner Dahlgren.
Here.
Commissioner Herzog.
Here.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Today's Planning Commission meeting is open to in-person attendance and may also be observed online through the Placer County website. In an effort to encourage the public to engage in the process, our public comment for this meeting will be offered in person and through a remote virtual process. Citizens who wish to comment virtually today should be prepared to comment via the Zoom platform. To join online, click on the link on the Planning Commission homepage. Please make sure your microphone is muted. You may also call in using your toll-free numbers to hear the meeting at 888-788-0099. Or you can call 877-853-5247. Those right numbers? I think last week we had some different numbers.
I think we got it right this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
And please enter the webinar ID number 882-1019-4940. Press *6 to mute yourself. If you would like to make public comment virtually, please raise your hand with the hand icon at the bottom of the page. If you're calling in, please press *9 to raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open public comment for the specific item you would like to address, which may include public comment for matters not included on the agenda, consent items, or a timed item. If attending in person today, we kindly request that once you have commented on your item, return to your seat or leave the hearing room through the exit-only door to accommodate for physical distancing and allow for others to provide in-person public comment. Each commenter is entitled to 3 minutes. Thank you for your patience as we work to preserve the safety and health of all meeting participants and to ensure that each citizen who wishes to comment has the opportunity to do so. Let's go ahead and move on to the Planning Director's report. EJ.
Good morning, EJ Valdi with Planning Services Division. First and foremost, I want to welcome our 2 new planning commissioners. At the April 19th board meeting, our board appointed 2 of our planning commission seats. First, Robin Dahlgren, appointed to the District 1 Planning Commission seat. And then Bridget Powers was appointed to our at-large Planning Commission seat. So thank you in advance for your public service. I'll probably give you just a minute when I get done with my report if you have anything you want to share with the commission. And then after that, we'll do the oath of office to get you guys officially seated on the commission. So anyway, welcome aboard. And then also, I want to congratulate Andrea DeShill, who's sitting right in front of you. Andrea is going to be serving as the new Planning Commission clerk with Sue Colbert retiring here in just a matter of days. Andrea's well-versed with public meetings. She's been the zoning administrator clerk the last 5 years, so we're fortunate to have someone that could come in and kind of make this a seamless transition. So congratulations, Andrea. So now, normal business. The April 19th board meeting, just to report out on that, the board did approve that emergency shelter CUP modification that extended the permit for another 5 years. That was a unanimous decision, and just as recommended by your commission. The board also approved the base-to-base gondola modification to extend the construction season as well. The Ridge project was not heard on that day. That was continued out just to make sure we had a complete staff report packet that wasn't quite all together for that meeting. So that's going to be heard on the May 10th board meeting. And then also on May 10th is the workshop for the housing-related code amendments. Any questions on board items? All right. Planning Commission schedule, upcoming next meeting is May 12th. We have an appeal of a parcel map modification, and then we're also going to be doing a workshop on our next round of zoning text amendments. So that's what we're calling the 2022 zoning text amendments. A lot of cleanup, bringing things into conformance with state law and so forth. So that would just be a workshop. We aren't asking for any action at that meeting. Just looking for some input from your commission. And then the following meeting, May 26th, we're still trying to get that agenda together. One thing I know that's going to be on there is the beekeeping ordinance, which we had brought that to your commission before, so that is going to be coming before your commission. Other than that, I know we sent out some training information from the Institute for Local Government for Planning Commission training. I know Robin signed up for that. That's tomorrow, I believe up in Placerville. So thank you for taking advantage of that. And I believe that's it. So maybe now we can turn over to either Bridget or Robin. You'd like to say a few words, and then we'll do the oath of office.
Hello, I'm Robin Dahlgren. I live in West Roseville, represented by Supervisor Bonnie Gore. I've spent 25 years in management consulting, mostly around public sector. Our primary clients are Caltrans, CalPERS, CalSTRS, OES, and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I'm also a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate representing foster children and juvenile teens in delinquency courts, and I'm happy to be here and looking forward to working with my fellow commissioners in this new role.
Hi, I'm Bridget Powers, and I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for this wonderful opportunity to represent two communities that I live in, both Olympic Valley, which is the eastern slope, Tahoe area, and here in Auburn, as well as other areas. My background is for 25 years. I worked in the land and entitlement department for a title insurance company, so I understand CEQA and all those other acronyms that we will be talking about quite often. So I'm looking forward to working with my fellow colleagues and supporting making Placer County the great place it already is. Thank you.
Well, that's excellent. Welcome, Robin and Bridget. It's your wonderful presence on the commission. And Andrea, welcome. I think we'll go ahead and move to the oath of office for our newly appointed planning commissioners appointed by the Board of Supervisors at its April 19th, 2022 meeting. C1, we're going to go with Robin Dahlgren. Are we going to do them together? Is that what I heard? Or do one in each one?
I believe we can do them together. Clayton? Yep.
Okay, and Bridget Powers. So you guys will lead you through that oath of office.
I, and then insert your name, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
I, Robin Dahlgren, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I will take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. I know we're doing this wrong, sorry.
It's okay.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely and without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Is that good, Andrea?
Okay.
Did we do it?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Just look at council to make sure that's all.
Right.
And maybe I missed it. Commissioner Powers, did you say the second part of the oath?
I did.
She
Yes.
did, okay.
Yeah.
We're good? Okay,
Sorry, that was.
welcome
been
Bridget and Robin. Now you're officially in, okay. I think we also have a vacancy for vice chair with our recent resignation. So we need to go ahead and take a nomination for a vice chairman for the commission.
I nominate Richard Johnson as vice chair. Given this may not be in the normal sequence of things, but I think given his experience on the planning commission, that for the remainder of this term would be appropriate. So I nominate Richard.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. We'll go ahead and take a vote on that nomination. Would you like to say anything about accepting that nomination? I'm not sure.
You got to vote?
Oh, we would need a vote first.
Okay.
Okay, I have a first from Commissioner Howdy and a second from Commissioner Powers. Commissioner Powers,
Aye.
Commissioner Howdy,
Aye.
Thompson,
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Woodward,
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren,
Aye.
Commissioner Herzog.
Yes. Well, since you voted yes for yourself, I'll assume that you're accepting that role, which I think is appropriately appointed. So thanks for serving in that. I think we have a normal rotation that we go with, and we'll have to revisit that. But probably should expect to be chair next year. So we'll see how that goes with that nomination process. I think I'll go ahead and move on, getting back to the agenda. We'll now open public comment for any matters not on the planning commission agenda. Is there anyone here in the audience in person that would like to address any items that are not on our agenda today? We have a hand raised online, so. Oh, yeah, Commissioner DiMattei, good to see you. You're free to speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to call in. Sorry I couldn't be there today. I'm going to an almond grower meeting and forgot to double book. But I just want to say congratulations to the two ladies who are now on our commission to help us out. And I'm sorry I couldn't be there today. That's it.
Excellent, good to hear from you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll go ahead and close public comment for items not on the agenda. And we'll move to the consent agenda. Would any commissioners like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Removing any consent agenda? Okay, would anyone from the public like to remove a consent agenda item? Andrew, I can see it pretty good, but I'm kind of relying on you to let me know if someone is, okay. Okay, so we can move forward with a motion from the commission on consent agendas.
I make a motion that we approve it.
Second?
Yeah, first and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Powers,
Aye.
Commissioner Howdy,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward,
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren,
I believe I have to abstain because I wasn't at the last meeting.
Me as well.
Should-
Sorry about that.
Do we need to revote, Clayton, or can you?
I think as long as it's voiced on the record
Okay,
while we take the votes, that Commissioner Powers is abstaining as well as Commissioner Dahlgren.
and Commissioner Herzog.
yes. Okay, we're gonna move on to our first timed item. Granite Bay Medical Office Complex General Plan Amendment, Rezone, Tentative Parcel Map, Variance, and Design Review. Members from the public may now raise their hands, press star 9 if you're calling in, to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Callie Kettinger-Cecil, Senior Planner, will be presenting on this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Welcome, Commissioners Powers and Commissioners Dahlgren. And good morning, Chairman Herzog. My name is Callie Kettinger-Cecil. I'm a Senior Planner with the Planning Services Division. The item before you this morning is the Granite Bay Medical Office Complex Project, which is requesting a general plan amendment, rezone, variance, design review, and tentative map for the construction and operation of 4 medical office buildings. The project site is shown here in red and is located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Berg Street and Douglas Boulevard. Surrounding uses include residential to the north and the west, and commercial to the east and to the south. The project site consists of 2 parcels totaling 2.13 acres and are zoned residential single-family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet. Surrounding parcels to the north and to the west are under the same zoning designation. The parcel to the east is zoned office professional, combining design scenic corridor, and the parcels to the south are zoned general commercial, combining use permit, combining scenic design corridor. This slide is showing the community plan land use designations of the site. Shown in green are those areas that have a land use designation of low density residential, 0.4 to 0.9 dwelling units per acre. Shown in purple are the areas that have a land use designation of commercial. These photos show the existing site conditions. The site is currently undeveloped and is vegetated with oak woodland. There is a drainage ditch that runs along the southern property boundary and an ephemeral stream that runs along the north portion of the property boundary and then crosses at the center and eventually ends at Douglas Boulevard. This is showing a little bit of that channel there. This slide shows the site plan that is prepared for the project and shows the location of the 4 buildings, as well as parking and circulation and an entrance off of Berg Street. The project is seeking a general plan amendment to change the land use designation from low-density residential to commercial, a rezone from residential single-family, combining minimum building site of 20,000 square feet, to office professional, combining design corridor, a tentative parcel map to subdivide the parcel into 4 parcels, a variance to allow a 10-foot wall to be located along the north and west property boundaries, where a maximum height of 6 feet is normally allowed, and a design review for the site and design review of the project. As mentioned, the project is proposing to construct and operate 4 medical office buildings. Uses that would be occurring in these buildings include outpatient services, dental services, mental health, and allied health services such as a chiropractor's office, allergists, speech-language pathologists, etc. Building 1 would be located on the western portion of the site and would be 4,145 square feet. Buildings 2, 3, and 4 would be 3,187 square feet. 78 parking spaces are provided throughout the site, and additional improvements include utilities, frontage improvements, as well as construction of an underground detention basin for stormwater treatment, an entrance from Berg Street. The project would also result in grading and retaining walls and would also be removing 119 trees, including 74 oaks. Frontage improvements include restriping Berg Street to match the existing configuration, installation of a 4-foot wide bike lane, construction of a 6-foot wide decomposed granite trail, and improvements to the curb and gutter and landscape installation. Along Douglas Boulevard, improvements include a 4-foot wide bike lane, a 6-foot wide concrete sidewalk, landscape installation, and curb and gutter improvements. This project was reviewed per the California Environmental Quality Act. An initial study was released for public review on March 1st, 2022, and public review ended on March 30th. There were several letters received, including those from residents of the area, 2 community associations, the Central Valley Water Quality Control Board, and PG&E. Mitigation measures were identified for aesthetics, biological resources, hydrology, noise, cultural resources, and geology and soils. The letters from the Water Board and PG&E were standard form letters outlining their typical requirements for projects and the letters from the two community groups, as well as the residents, were in opposition to the project. Points raised in the letters included issues with tree removal, concerns over grading, concerns regarding aesthetics, concerns regarding traffic and land use and community plan consistency, as well as density of the site. With regards to aesthetics, shown here are renderings of the proposed project as seen from the intersection of Bergen Douglas and Douglas Boulevard. The project has been designed to be consistent with scenic roadway policies within the community plan, as well as Community Design Section 4.2.3, which suggests that parking should be located where possible and feasible at the rear, and where it is visible from public view sheds should be obscured with landscaping, which this project is doing. The majority of the parking is located behind the buildings, but there is a small portion that would be visible from Douglas Boulevard between buildings 2 and 3. And the landscape plan demonstrates that there would be additional landscaping here to further obscure views of the parking. The project has also been designed to be consistent with Appendix A of the Granite Bay Community Plan, which outlines preferred design elements for the Douglas corridor. And the buildings have been designed to be a craftsman-style architecture, including low-pitched roofs, natural siding, including stone and exposed wood beams, and the buildings would also be single-story. So these are a few of the design elements in Appendix A, and the buildings have been designed to be consistent with those preferred design elements. The proposed landscape plan is also consistent with Appendix A of the community plan, as it includes the use of native and drought-tolerant plant species, including bay laurel, interior live oak, manzanita, wild lilac, and toyon. 16 native oaks on site would be incorporated into the landscape design. The project is proposing to remove 119 trees, and 16 trees would be retained. There are several large oaks along the northern property line that could, their long-term survivability could be compromised by the paving that would occur for the parking lot, as well as irrigation for landscaping. And so in order to ensure that those remain, there's a mitigation measure that requires that if those trees survive within 5 years after the certificate of occupancy is issued, that the property owner would have to enter into a replanting and monitoring program for new oaks for a period of 5 years to ensure that some of that aesthetic buffer that is provided by those existing trees is still there. There were 4 different biological resources reports and analyses that looked at the biological features that are on the site, including a report prepared in 2014 and an update in 2020. The update that was prepared in 2020 was done to confirm if anything had changed since the 2014 report, as well as to identify appropriate mitigation measures per the Placer County Conservation Program, which had not been adopted when the original bio report was done in 2014. An arborist report was also prepared, as well as a wetland delineation. These reports concluded that the on-site habitat includes 1.8 acres of foothill woodland, 0.1 acre of disturbed area, and 0.2 acres of roadway. I noted earlier there's an ephemeral stream that crosses the north portion of the site and then crosses the center. This consists of approximately 0.03 acres, and a roadside ditch is along the southern portion of the project site and consists of 0.01 acres. The reports concluded that the site does not have the potential to support special status plant species, but does have habitat for raptors and nesting birds. So there are mitigation measures for pre-construction surveys for those species. And the reports also concluded that these 2 features do not support any aquatic species or aquatic habitat. The project will be converting the on-site habitat, which I noted is foothill woodland, to a non-natural condition, and the project is required to mitigate for this land conversion via participation in the Placer County Conservation Program. Additional biological measures include pre-construction environmental awareness training for workers who are on site, pre-construction surveys, payment of land conversion fees, and obtaining regulatory permits for impacts to the stream from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Placer Conservation Authority. 2 noise analysis were done in 2014 and updated in 2020 in order to address changes to the site plan. The acoustic analysis focused on traffic noise, noise generated from building equipment, as well as parking lot noise. The project would also be generating noise temporarily during construction. The acoustic analysis identified several noise reduction measures, including ensuring that the buildings are either located a minimum 50 feet from the northern property line, or that the equipment, if it's ground-based, be shielded, to construct minimum 6-foot tall masonry walls on the north and west property lines, to limit construction to daytime hours only, and also requires that construction equipment be equipped with a muffler or other sound-reducing noise measures as approved by the Development Review Committee. These measures ensure consistency with the noise ordinance as well as the general plan. 2 traffic analyses were prepared for the site, one in 2014, and then another was prepared dated July 29th, 2021. The purpose of the second update was to analyze the project's trip generation for a new vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, analysis. These analyses show that the serving intersections would still operate within the community plan policies for level of service, and that these buildings would not be generating a significant amount of VMT, and in fact, the analysis concluded that these buildings would be locally serving non-residential uses and may have the effect of actually reducing regional VMT. There was a collision analysis that was also done, and per Caltrans data, facilities with similar intersections have a collision rate of 0.024 collisions per million entering vehicles. The traffic analysis determined that the intersection of Berg and Douglas has a collision rate of 0.06 collisions per million entering vehicles, and because it is not a significant amount of collisions, there aren't any mitigation measures associated with that. Having said that, the project would be making required circulation improvements and paying traffic mitigation fees. I noted earlier, this project is requesting a variance to wall height. The project is proposing to construct a wall along the west and northern property lines and is requesting to be 10 feet where a maximum height of 6 feet is normally allowed. So this wall would be a 4-foot retaining wall with a 6-foot masonry wall on top. But really the only place where it would be 10 feet is up at the northwest corner. It'd be 6 feet down here, increasing in height as the grade differential increases, and same here, it'd be higher here, and then eventually stepping down to 6 feet. So it's really just this portion that would have a wall of 10 feet in height. The project is also requesting consideration of a front setback reduction. The Granite Bay Community Plan requires that projects on the north side of Douglas Boulevard adhere to a 75-foot setback from the right-of-way of Douglas Boulevard unless a project can demonstrate high-quality design, landscaping, or other techniques to provide a visual buffer. This project is providing a high-quality design and provides a visual buffer and is requesting that the buildings be set back 35 feet from the edge of easement, where the community plan requires 75 feet. In regards to zoning, the project is proposing to rezone the site from residential single family to office professional, and the proposed use of the medical buildings is an allowable use in the office professional zone district. Office uses are consistent with the adjacent commercial uses to the south and east, including the Quarry Ridge project, which is located immediately east of the project site. The proposed hours of operation, the retaining wall to address noise, the design of the buildings, the frontage improvements for sidewalks and bike lanes are all designed to be compatible with the adjacent residential uses. Lights along the northern property line are required to be motion censored, and the photometric plan that has been prepared for the project demonstrates that no light from the project would spill onto adjacent properties. The scenic design corridor ensures consistency with the Granite Bay Community Plan design policies as well as the Placer County Landscape Design Guidelines. And conditions and mitigation measures ensure relative compatibility with the residential uses to the north and the west. As noted earlier in the presentation as well as the staff report, the project is consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan. And shown here is a section from Chapter 3, Land Use, discussing the commercial areas within the plan. And this notes in part that smaller pockets of commercial development are located at the intersection of Douglas and Berg. This is referring to the existing commercial that's on the south side of Douglas, as this was written in 2012, and Quarry Ridge, which is on the north side of Douglas, had not been proposed or constructed. But I've included it here to demonstrate that this intersection has supported commercial uses. It does support commercial uses today, and commercial uses are an appropriate fit for the location. This project has been analyzed to be consistent with the community plan. As discussed in the staff report, it's consistent with policies, goals, and principles in the land use chapter, the community design chapter, Appendix A of the community plan for scenic design corridor policies on Douglas. It's consistent with Chapter 5, Chapter 5, Natural Resources, including participation in the Placer County Conservation Program. It's consistent with Chapter 8, Health and Safety, with regards to noise, as well as Chapter 9, Circulation. This project has undergone several revisions. In 2014, the project proposed 2 buildings totaling 15,990 square feet at the northwest corner, 91 parking spaces. This would have resulted in 97 oak trees removed, a slightly smaller landscape area, and 2 entrances from Douglas and Berg. The 2021 site plan shows 4 buildings that are smaller, totaling 13,390 square feet, 78 parking spaces, and a larger landscape area. This project was also requesting a 12-foot wall along the west and north property lines, where this project is proposing 10. I noted this project would have had 91 parking spaces, 78 are proposed here. This design also results in fewer oak trees removed. So this is comparing the various iterations that have been done. As I noted, the 2014 site plan, the buildings were larger. They were located closer to the residences that are adjacent to the site, would have had more parking spaces, resulted in more trees, had a smaller landscape setback from Douglas Boulevard, and had higher walls compared to what the applicant has proposed today, which is 4 buildings that are approximately 13,700 square feet, fewer parking spaces, less oaks removed, and a greater landscape setback. This project has been presented to the Granite Bay Municipal Advisory Council on several occasions, including in 2016, when the MAC recommended denial of the project. Primary concerns were related to tree impacts, the amount of paving that was proposed, the location of the buildings, as well as the 2 entrances from Douglas and Berg Street. In July 2021, this project was brought before the MAC again, and the MAC recommended that the number of buildings be decreased, requested that the ephemeral stream be preserved, opposed the reduction in the Douglas Boulevard setback, and expressed a perception that the project does not fit with the site. On April 6, 2022, the project was again presented before the MAC as an action item, and the project was presented with slightly smaller buildings, fewer parking spaces, less tree removal, and a slightly larger landscape setback. At that meeting, the MAC expressed disappointment in the redesign and stated that commercial was not appropriate and felt that the site should support residential uses. Additional MAC concerns included concerns with neighborhood compatibility, concerns with traffic and safety on Douglas, concerns regarding biological impacts resulting from the project, and the MAC felt that planning staff is biased towards developers. Public comments included impacts to property values, tree removal, and traffic safety concerns. One member of the public prepared PowerPoint slides showing existing residential development adjacent to roadways and expressed a desire for projects to have a strict adherence to the Granite Bay Community Plan with no variances, rezones, or plan amendments. The MAC ultimately voted 4-1 to recommend that your commission recommend the Board of Supervisors deny the project. Prior to today's hearing, we received 3 comment letters from the Granite Bay MAC, the Granite Bay Community Association, and 1 resident. They were all expressing opposition to the project for the reasons noted here. And I'd like to note that even though the MAC recommended denial, The application materials, the mitigated negative declaration, as well as the analysis in the staff report demonstrates that the project is an appropriate fit for the site. The staff report identifies key policies, goals, and principles that the project is consistent with in the Granite Bay Community Plan. And mitigation measures have been identified to reduce potential impacts. The proposed medical office use of the buildings is consistent with the proposed office professional zone district and is also compatible with the surrounding uses. The project has undergone significant redesign to address community concerns. With that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors the following actions based on the findings contained in the staff report and supported by the analysis in the mitigated negative declaration and subject to conditions of approval. The first is to adopt the mitigated negative declaration prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, including adoption of the mitigation monitoring reporting program. The second is to adopt a resolution to amend the Granite Bay Community Plan land use designation of the site from low-density residential to commercial. Adopt an ordinance to rezone the site from residential single-family to office professional. To approve a tentative map to subdivide the 2.13 acre parcel into 4 parcels. To approve a variance to allow a retaining wall and fence to be 10 feet in height along the west and north property lines, where 6-foot maximum wall is normally allowed. And finally, approve a design review agreement for the design of the project. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have, and the applicant is also here.
Okay, thank you, Callie. Appreciate your presentation. Just for my new commissioners and others, this is an opportunity for us to ask questions to staff. If we can limit our questions to those that staff can answer, and if we can withhold any opinion at this point, I think that's helpful. Just try to get clarification from staff, and we'll also bring up the applicant after this. So, any questions from commissioners? Okay.
So I have a question. How, and I didn't find it in here, how are we addressing the California law for no net loss of residential land?
For no net loss of residential land?
Right.
I am unaware of that policy.
Maybe EJ, because they're, typically if you're going to change a land use, you're going to have to find land uses elsewhere to replace residential uses.
Yeah, this is a single-family residential land use, so I don't think we've specifically addressed this with this proposal, so it's a good point of discussion.
Okay.
Can I? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Richard.
Yeah, I guess the water that's coming from offsite enters the northeast corner. And normally what it would do is, run down the gutter and then be captured down at the bottom someplace. I guess what my question really is there going to be a separation of the on-site water from the off-site water that's coming?
I will defer that question to my colleague in engineering and surveying, Candace Bartlett.
I think I need to ask for this mic to be turned on. Can Jeremy turn this on?
I think it's on.
Oh, it is? Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So the offsite flows are being separated. They will go into underground piping under the project, and then the onsite flows will be treated onsite and then discharged into the pipe that goes under Douglas Boulevard. But they will be kept separate.
Okay, that answered that question. Let me see, I guess I'm a little bit puzzled by the 10-foot wall. I see where there's a 4-foot retaining wall and then additional 6 feet on top of that. Mm-hmm. And so I guess what's the purpose of that?
The purpose is twofold. First is to retain earth that's needed for the cuts and fills of the project. The second is it's recommended as a noise reduction measure to have a minimum 6-foot masonry wall in order to ensure that the residential uses that are located at the north and west are not impacted from noise generated by the project as well as noise from Douglas Boulevard. Actually, there's also a third, which is that the Placer County zoning ordinance requires a minimum 6-foot wall to be located adjacent to non-residential uses. So when there's a commercial or industrial use adjacent to a residential, the zoning ordinance requires a minimum 6-foot wall. There's no upper limit on that, but that is the purpose of the wall there. It's buffering, noise, as well as aesthetics and earth retaining.
So in other words, we have a retaining wall and a 6-foot wall.
That's correct, yeah.
They're really
4-foot
kind of two
retaining
separate
wall.
things, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
If I could return to Mr. Hagee's comment, which is pretty interesting to me, is that a law? What he described, is that a law? This is the first time that I think we've ever discussed this. So, and you mentioned it as a law. So I would like to understand that a little bit more before we go too much further here, because this would profoundly impact this question.
So I can answer that. Yes, there is a no net loss law. It's in Government Code Section 65863. And it requires that any jurisdiction that's reducing the density of a residential area must make findings indicating that there are there's sufficient capacity remaining within the county to meet the unmet housing allocation numbers that the county is tasked with building. So that's the finding that needs to be made. It may take some staff research to see that, but this project, I believe, is only reducing two residential units, so it will not have a significant impact on the housing stock of the county generally.
But is that a finding we are making today or not?
So I think, the answer to that question, I think that's a finding that needs to be made. Back to the government code section, we have to show that there's land zoned to accommodate the required housing units. I feel confident we can do that, but as far as a specific finding, I don't believe we have that finding included in this staff report package. So that's something that we would need to address through the through this process today.
Yeah, I don't want to, I'm not interested in kind of gumming up the wheels here, but on the other hand, I think this is an outstanding point. It's not one that I was familiar with. I don't think anybody was, really. And if this requires more staff work, which I'm pretty confident this is not going to be an issue, but in order to get this right, it seems to me that this probably should be tabled until such time as you can come forward with that finding.
Yeah, like I said, I think the premise of that law is just like the, meeting that regional housing need location. We have to, show that we have properties zoned to meet that, and we have done that, through our, adoption of our housing element. But like I said, we would need to come back with that finding, depending on, whether the commission proceeds to move forward with taking any action on this project, or any tentative action for that matter.
So we could probably move forward with the presentation, and that could be part of our recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, right?
Well,
yeah, so we can move forward, and if it's part of our recommendation, we can make it part of that action.
Right, so yeah, there's a few options. You can certainly make a recommendation to the board, and then also require staff to provide that finding to the board when it goes to the board. You can make tentative action and ask staff to return with that findings, or you can continue the item wholly as well. Those are all available.
So Callie, is there any more you want to say on that specific item before we go to the applicant?
The only thing I would note is that, as EJ mentioned, there's 2 parcels, so that there's just 2 home sites that are currently present.
Okay.
I do have a couple more questions.
Okay, yeah.
So, well, I may return to that as well, but we'll see. So, Callie, just a couple of questions. By the way, excellent staff report in my view. Excellent presentation, as always. So really well done, I think. Just a couple of quick questions here. First, the 35-foot setback from Douglas, which is obviously a major thoroughfare. Are there other projects along Douglas in this vicinity that are set back 35 feet?
Yes, the Quarry Ridge office project, which is immediately across Berg Street from this, also has a reduced setback
Right.
based on that very same language.
Okay, okay, good, thank you. If the max recommendation, which was a 2021 recommendation for 2 buildings, was in fact embraced by the developer, the applicant, would that setback be required?
It depends on where.
Placement? Yeah. So the original proposal in 2021, it looked like it wouldn't be, because those were located, back, but they could be placed really anywhere on that site probably, because the site would accommodate them, and you would just have to work the parking around them, right?
Right, but there's also policies in the Granite Bay Community Plan that suggest that buildings should be located at the front of a project site to obscure the views from parking from public areas. But yes, in 2014, there were 2 buildings proposed. They were each 7,900-ish square feet. If, there were just 2 buildings, perhaps they could. Kind of just depends on where they would be cited if they were only going to do 2 buildings in relation to their required parking, in adherence to setbacks, et cetera.
Okay. Could you explain perhaps a little bit more thoroughly why the applicant did not embrace the proposal for 2, or should we wait for the applicant?
I think that's more appropriate for the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. The final question I want to make here is just, again, a question of, I guess, procedure. So it's acceptable for us to make a decision, or at least recommend a decision, without necessarily having this element associated with the offset of housing part of our decision-making process.
You could make that recommendation. It would be contingent on, the board would need to approve it based upon having that finding being met. But your recommendation could be contingent upon that finding being met.
Okay. Thank you.
Robin, do you have any questions at this point? Okay. Okay, let's bring up the applicant. If you don't mind stating your name.
Good morning, my name's Russ Kuhn, and I'm the applicant, and this is. the
Yeah, I'm Tony
engineer.
McCreary. I'm the civil engineer with RFE Engineering.
Okay, if you want to make a short presentation or address anything you've heard, you're welcome to do that, or we can move right to questions.
Sure.
Okay, I kind of wanted to go through the concerns of the Granite Bay MAC, try and address as much as we could. First, there was concern that we weren't addressing the original concerns that they had in 2016. You can see with the site plan, we initially had 2 buildings, and we had it set back to 75 feet to meet the setback along Douglas. At that time, there was concern from the MAC that having all the parking in the front, and it also didn't meet the Granite Bay Community Plan, which wanted to have the parking in the back. So we went back to the drawing board and pulled the buildings to the front. We were trying to figure out how far to the front that we should place the buildings. The Quarry Ridge project to the east of us, opposite on Berg Street, is set back 20 feet. So that was our basis that we initially set these 4 buildings back, was 20 feet off of Douglas Boulevard. We took that to the MAC last year, and again, at that time, they were concerned about having the reduction in the setback. So we went from 2 buildings to 4, and with the reduced setback in the front, and we went ahead and pushed the buildings back another 15 feet following that MAC meeting to try and kind of find a middle ground with the MAC on that. So right now, it went from 20 feet in the front, and now it's at 35 feet, which is more than the project to the east, the Quarry Ridge project has. So another concern has to do with density. We have the 4 buildings on there, and right now, with the 4 buildings, we have a floor to area ratio of about 0.15. So there's 13,700 square feet of building on a total of about 93,000 square feet of land. If you look at the residential homes to the north, the Via Milano Court homes, the average size of those homes are 5,300 square feet. The lots are about 26,000 square feet. So the floor to area ratio for those is 0.2. So you have a higher floor to area ratio for those residential homes to the north than you would for this commercial property. If we were to have the same floor to area ratio for this project as the residential homes at Via Milano Court, we would have we'd have about 5,000 square feet more of building. So that kind of addresses the density end of it. Tree impact, there are a ton of trees on this site. Whatever development is going to happen here, there's going to be trees that are going to have to be taken out. Callie mentioned that there's, I don't know if you can go back to that slide that has the trees on it, but there's like 120 or 119 trees that are going to be, oh, right here. Okay, remember which direction it was. Yeah, this one. So the trees, it's not, you can kind of see it. The trees that have kind of the highlighted portions in them, those trees are trees that are recommended for removal. Of the 119 trees that are recommended for removal, about half, 60 of them, were identified by the arborist as being dead or dying, so a number 1 or a number 2 tree. Number 1 meaning that they're dead, number 2 that means there's going to be substantial mitigation that's going to happen for those trees to be removed. So this map kind of shows where all those trees are located. Regardless of what gets placed there, a lot of trees are going to have to be taken out, and a lot of them are in very poor condition. Let's see here. Yeah, there was mention of the flow, the off-site stormwater flows, which Candace already kind of mentioned. It is going to be completely separate. You can kind of see the drainage as it goes along the north side. It goes to the east and then south through the site right now. The drainage that flows along the north side of the property is going to remain as is. We're going to pick up the drainage on the north side, put it underground through a pipe, and discharge it into a new structure immediately north of Douglas Boulevard, where it will continue south into Strap Ravine. So those flows are completely separate from the on-site flows, which will have the underground stormwater detention to mitigate the increased flows from the pre to post-development condition. So with that, I think it addresses many of the concerns from the MAC dealing with density, tree removal, drainage, setbacks, and I think Russ has a little bit that he wanted to say too.
So I live across the street. I've been in Granite Bay for 22 years. And I understand the biggest concern, what I heard at the MAC meeting was traffic. So we're putting in an acceleration lane, which is going to improve the traffic flow getting on to Granite Bay, because that's what's scary, is getting onto a busy road anywhere and not at a stoplight. With an acceleration lane, it actually will improve the existing conditions. And as Callie has mentioned, this is actually going to improve traffic flow, especially if it was residential. Residential would have more people taking off, going different locations, for whether it's shopping or the mall. What we're doing by having an office that services the community, for instance, the medical building across the street, which is an urgent care. If somebody needed urgent care in Granite Bay before, they had to drive to the Roseville or the Citrus Heights urgent care. Now, if you live in Citrus Heights, you're not driving to Granite Bay to go use urgent care. So the point that I'm making is That's who the office buildings are gonna service, is gonna service the Granite Bay community. And again, I'm concerned about the traffic as much as anybody. We thought by doing the 20-foot setback, which was what our neighbor has done, that's what the community wanted, to have more of the landscape and the buildings as a buffer. We've moved them around based on the requests, and then the final request is we've reduced the size. We went from 2 buildings, which were much larger than the 4 buildings as far as total square footage. But for these boutique type of dermatologists, dentists, they want their own building. And so instead of doing 2 large buildings, and we give them their own individual craftsman-style building.
Okay, thank you. Let's open up to questions. Commissioner Johnson.
I guess on the drainage, I'm thinking that the water from above gets picked up the northeast corner, and I understand how you're gonna get it down to the.
Not at the northeast, kind of right in the middle of the 2 properties, so.
Well, the water coming from.
It'll continue this direction, and it's gonna be picked up here and
Right,
piped.
and so you're picking up water from the residents and whatever's above.
Yeah, there's
Right
a
there.
watershed above, yeah.
And then, but at any rate, the water that, and I don't, I guess maybe I'm asking how this happens now, but the water that, from the above property line down to Douglas Boulevard, that lands on the street, how does that get handled now?
Well, there's no defined curb and gutter along Berg Street right now. It's just kind of, there's asphalt and a sort of a shoulder along there. So the drainage that this is showing is actually, there's a culvert right up in here, so it's discharged under Berg Street, and it goes into this ephemeral channel. So this isn't particularly road drainage from Berg Street, it's from a larger shed that goes way up into subdivisions to the northeast. The drainage along Berg Street, just, there's no defined drainage that it goes into. It just kind of goes into here. Some of it probably gets into this channel, but there's no real defined area where the drainage from Berg Street is going into.
So is there a plan on addressing that with this project?
Yeah, along Berg, we will have new curb and gutter along here with and this is all, the topography goes up as you go to the north, so it would all flow this direction with a curb inlet here, and that would also, so that would pick up the water along Berg, and it would connect into manhole structure and get out into Strap Ravine.
It's gonna be, will there be a grate there, or is it just gonna run around the?
No, there will be a grate there.
Where's the grate gonna be?
Like a curb, set in the curb like you usually see on the street.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Question, given this is a request for a general plan amendment, what is the demonstrated need for additional professional office in Granite Bay?
I find that the Granite Bay is underserved for professional use. We get approached all the time. I did a small development across the street, which is in front of my home, and there was a big need for local community. Like I said, the daycare was one of them, but which also reduces people from leaving the Granite Bay area to go take their kids somewhere else. It helps with the traffic flow. And then the medical building, the medical buildings that have gone there, those buildings were basically pre-sold prior to the pandemic. But then when that happened, everybody was a little bit nervous, doing a wait and see. But they've all been sold. And that was important to me because somebody else owned that land, and it was, had the potential of being some other use, which, since I lived there, had a different desire to see. And there used to be just semi-trucks and campers that would sit and park there, and it was used for all the wrong purpose. We actually have the parcels pre-sold if it does get, there is a use. The guy's a dermatologist that wants to be in there, and the other's an allergist.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am not an engineer. I try not to. One of my colleagues will often kind of move blocks around on screens and stuff like that. And it's kind of interesting to me to watch that kind of mindset go through the process, and I learn a lot from it, but I'm not an engineer, and I freely admit that. However, one of the principal concerns here that I heard quite often was that we have this 35-foot setback. Now, it was pretty clear to me that there was property nearby that is also set back, apparently 20 feet. I wasn't aware of that, but we obviously want to serve this community. We want the community to embrace what you guys are doing here, and there is a lot of consternation about it. So my question, I suppose, for your engineer more than anything else is there a possibility that we could move these buildings back and get rid of that 35-foot and get it a lot closer to the 75-foot setback that is typically what we try to see along Douglas?
Actually, I'd like to answer that because that was what I wanted initially, and Mac requested that we make the change because they don't like to see the parking out front.
The parking, right.
I'll move the buildings wherever you guys want them. I really will. That's not that, saving the oak trees, love the idea. Tony is the one that suggested if we reduce this another 15 feet and don't move the building back, just reduce the building size, we're gonna save a lot more oak trees. And it's gonna have a better buffer, and I like that idea. But if you want to combine the buildings and make them just two buildings a little bigger because you'd lose the walkway between them, I'd be happy with that. I'd get that square footage back. If you want me to move them to the back and we park in the front, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different opinion on where they want the buildings.
I've noticed. But it's interesting that you're displaying this level of flexibility here. I
did it every meeting.
Well, and you live here.
I live there.
You live in the community, and this is one of those things. Look, I'm pretty tough on people who want to purchase property or own property and then want to rezone it, and they come here to ask us to rezone. But frankly, in this case, I drive by this pretty much every day. And I went through this, I went there and I walked this area. And in my estimation, although there are certainly community members who will not send me fruit baskets after I say this, but frankly, I don't see this property as a suitable residential property. So I think it's an improperly zoned, parcel, and what you're proposing, to me, makes some sense. Admittedly, I'm not supposed to kind of have debate here, but what I'm trying to get to here is this. The MAC has really got some fierce concerns about the distance back from Douglas. And frankly, I can see that. I didn't see it necessarily initially, but even having listened to you and to the proposal today from Callie, I can understand her concerns. And so what I'm trying to do is move us to something that might be a little bit more palatable from a community perspective, the community that you hope to serve, and frankly, I think you will serve with this facility. And so I just wanted to get your sense, and honestly, you sound like you're willing to consider those inputs further. Is that accurate?
Definitely, but I would love to have a definite direction of the input and not take on somebody's suggestion and then bring it back to them and say, well, now we want to do, I'll do whatever, just, this is what I was hoping, is that we'd get a consensus of, yeah, that's a good plan, but
everybody's got a different opinion on what color a house should be, or if it should be brick or stone or stucco, and I get that. And it's hard to try to service everybody's opinion, but the one thing I do agree with what you said, this is a horrible residential location. It just doesn't make sense. If you're gonna lose every dog you've ever had, going on Douglas, and yes, it's a busy, fast street, but this isn't adding to the traffic problem. The homes would, but this isn't adding to and what a great buffer between homes and the roadway there is to have a couple other buildings and a wall to reduce the noise mitigation. I know because I live just off Douglas, and it's reduced the noise mitigation to my home immensely. I love it.
Right. You won't get an argument with me, from me on that more than likely. But so you mentioned that one of the other complaints or concerns, I suppose is the way to say it, was that we are now at 4 buildings versus 2. That does in fact reduce your ability to provide square footage to possible tenants. So you did indicate potentially a willingness to go to 2 buildings, although you also mentioned that some of these boutique these individuals like their kind of boutique building approach. Would you in fact be willing to go to 2 buildings? This is another concern of the MAX.
Here's right here, the gap between the 2 buildings.
Right.
If I could just meld them together.
Right.
The project wouldn't change anything. I'd have a bigger building because now I don't have one. I have one, but I don't have a walkway between them. So if I did it with the gap in between, then it makes sense. What I would make less per square foot on the building, I'd make up with square footage.
Right.
So I'm amenable.
Okay. Well, I think I've probably, taken up enough time here. We can discuss this further perhaps afterwards. I do appreciate your flexibility. I think the community appreciates your flexibility. There's a few residents here, I think now, probably some others online. So I don't know where this will ultimately go, but the fact that you're agreeable, provided you do get some legitimate consensus out of the community, which you deserve, is a good thing. So thank you for that.
One last comment on that is I've spoke to a lot of residents in the area, and I'll get letters and saying somebody's looking to, for instance, the Quarry Ridge. I got a letter on that, and I was for it. I thought that's great. But I didn't show to the meetings to support that I was for it. As I'm putting up the notice, somebody stops, the husband and wife, and says, what are you doing? And I said, this is for the rezone. Oh, what are you going to try to rezone it for? I told them. They go, what's it zoned now? Residential? Oh, that's lousy. That's a good idea. And they drive away. They're not going to show up to the meetings. So even though there's some residents that don't agree, the community as a whole, if you could take a vote, I don't think that you would get but a handful of people that disagree. But those are the ones that are passionate. I love that because they care about the community. But it's not the whole community's opinion. The passionate people are the ones that show to the meetings.
Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll move to public comment, and we'll bring you guys back if we have.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure,
About the wall, just in case anybody was wondering about the wall. The 10-foot measurement, like Callie said, it's 10 feet right up about in here through in here. The 10 feet is viewed from the project site. So in here, it appears that the wall is 10 feet. On this side, the neighboring properties, it's viewed as 6 feet. So there's cut in here to kind of clarify what that 10-foot looks like.
Okay, thank you. We'll have opportunity for you guys to come back. I think what we'll do is move to public comment. Who here in the audience is here to speak on this item? 2. Okay. Do we have a list, EJ, or should we just go in order, have them line up, queue up behind each other?
Yeah, no list today. I think
Okay.
we can accommodate everybody. Just
Maybe you guys can friendly figure out how to come up and speak. If someone's ready, they can stand up behind the next person and we'll go through. If you can start with your name, you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure. Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Pat. I'm a resident of Granite Bay community. I live on a parcel north of this proposed project, and congratulations, Commissioner Duncan and Powers, on your appointment. Certainly, I speak for myself as well as a number of other people. I don't know which one the developer was talking about. Only a few people have opposition. Everybody I spoke to had serious concerns about this, and we strongly protest and completely oppose the rezoning of the above-mentioned property. The current zoning should remain as is and not modified to accommodate special interest groups. So rezoning would forever negatively alter the safety, traffic, environment, and character of this area. There are points of objection and protest. The first one is the traffic concerns. Traffic is a major area of concern. Douglas Boulevard already has high traffic congestion at the intersection of Berg and Douglas during the rush hour. Traffic jams on Douglas Boulevard already extend for number of yards, and the intersection of Douglas Boulevard and Berg is routinely blocked by traffic turning onto Berg during rush hour. Moreover, the recent addition of Quarry Ridge Professional Office Park is already contributing, so it is not even occupied, so you'll see a lot more once those are occupied. And also across the street, so you have more mobs coming, medical office buildings. So they're all going to contribute to that. The studies that talked about done were during the depth of COVID when the traffic was not bad, like either November of 2020, the noise as well as the traffic. Once the traffic goes back, that's going to create an issue. The second one is the safety of pedestrians and the children. So the consequences of increased traffic extend beyond rush hour traffic jams. Increased vehicular traffic risks the safety of pedestrians and children who walk and play around our neighborhoods. The noise pollution. So we already have noise pollution associated with the Douglas Boulevard. With an increase in traffic, this will go further up. In addition, during the construction phase, the construction noise and ground-borne vibration will have additional impact. And we have safety concerns from the usage of this after hours, as well as the environmental impact. We talked about removing a lot of trees, the visual impact, air pollution, light pollution, as well as the property values. So we have a number of areas of concerns. And the second one is talking about do we need more? We already have. They're not even occupied. Across the street, we have medical office buildings. Adjoining the Quarry Ridge, we have. They're all empty. So we are not sure. And we have 6 physicians living in our lane. So we understand the doctor's perspective. The second one is in terms of the ethical aspect. So if somebody walked by, this is a residential one, and this is being actually sold as commercial. So I don't think this is ethical or legal. You can see there's a signboard. So this is not right. And I can understand, the Planning Commission commenting on the neutrality, whether it complies or not, but coming and propagating or advocating on their behalf, I'm really surprised with that. And MAC, sides with us residents, and so I request humbly to vote this project down.
Thank you for your comments. I should probably say that you're going to see a light, and when it turns yellow, you still have a minute. So don't be too shocked by that. Thank you.
My name is Aslam Godel. I'm a resident of Via Milano Court, right behind where this project is going to be. We are all neighbors. We unanimously oppose this project. I've been living in that area for about 16, 17 years now. So I'm very, very familiar with Berg, Douglas intersections, all the changes that have happened over the last 5-10 years. First, I want to bring up a couple of legal issues. First, when the owner of the property said he got a notification of Quarry Ridge project in the mail, and he said, oh, that's a great idea. I live 200 feet from this project, and I did not get a notice about this. Only 2 of my neighbors did, because they are less than 200 feet or whatever that criteria is being used. And I'm like their neighbor. I see them every day, but I did not get that notice. So out of 8 residents, only 3 of us got that notice. So it was going under the radar for 5 out of 8 residents. So I think that's not fair. When a letter is sent out to a community or a homeowners association, it should go to the president of the HOA, which is me, or all the residents. So again, this was a very minimal advertisement as to what was going on. So I'm not sure somebody who lives 800 feet or 1,000 feet away got a Quarry Ridge letter, but me who lives less than 300 feet did not get one. So I think that's a big legal issue here. The second thing I want to mention is the commercial properties are, the vacancy rate, has anybody done a calculation what the vacancy rate of commercial properties is? The ones that were built across from this on Douglas is designated commercial, and several office buildings have been built, and they've been vacant. After several years, a few of them have been occupied now by an urgent care and a dermatologist. So I don't think there is a need to have more commercial properties. When people walk by from the community, say, oh, this is a great idea, you cannot have a residential. There are some residential properties at the intersection of Eureka and Auburn-Folsom Road. On Auburn-Folsom Road in Douglas, 2 residential brand new communities are being built, and they're right next to these roads. A high-density apartment, 8-unit, 10-unit could be built because there is a need for residential. So based on some of these factors, I highly, highly oppose this, and so does the association. And I wish we could be given more time, just like the way the project is being presented by the other side, we should be given more time to present our case, because there are several more issues that we can bring up. But because I'm running out of time, I cannot bring up. But I would appreciate if I'm given an opportunity to have more time.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Corrine Green, and I also live on Via Milano. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I will just keep it simple. My backyard right now is beautiful. I look up at amazing trees, tall, beautiful, mature trees, and we enjoy our backyard that way. So to me, going from what's going to happen, what will be happening in my backyard, would be going from residential to commercial, changes it entirely. So I would like to just, I guess, propose to you, how would it feel if someone took what you looked at in your backyard to be a retaining wall or a wall, taking down beautiful greenery, which is meant to be residential. That's how we enjoy our homes, is in a residential setting. So to me, it just is very sad that it would go to that, especially to go to space that, or go to medical office space or these proposed concrete buildings, and we're taking down beautiful greenery for that. And I mean, it's pretty much that simple. And also to be hearing noise, more noise from Douglas, more noise from however many parking spaces that are going to be right there, and extra traffic. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Since she has 1 minute, can I have just one question for your consideration?
No, thank you. We're going to move on to the next speaker.
Hello, I'm Steve Lamson. I'm a resident on Via Milano Court as well. I have 3 concerns with this project, which is why I think it should not be approved. First, I'm concerned about the northbound traffic on Berg that has to turn left into the project. You have a exit from Douglas where the speed limit is 55 miles an hour, and people take that right-hand turn because they're concerned about being rear-ended fairly quickly. If you get a backup of traffic there, I think you're, under the plan, you only have a 1-lane road, so everything's going to have to stop. I'm concerned about the potential for rear-end collisions. Secondly, Via Milano Court's a little uphill from Douglas. I believe the noise impact on our properties is going to be greater than what was documented probably in the noise study, because you're going to lose the effect of the trees, and those trees are fairly tall. So I think from our perspective, it certainly has an adverse impact on the noise in our community. And lastly, my concern is, without real documentation of the need for this sorts of properties, I think we need to be very, very careful about rezoning something if someone hasn't done a documented need study to show that there aren't other buildings available, et cetera. When people bought the property, it was zoned residential, and to have it changed, I think it's an obligation of everyone to make sure there is an absolute need for this sort of property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name's Sandy Harris. I've lived out there 45 years. I've seen a lot of changes, and I'm representing the Granite Bay Community Association, and we have been following this project from the start, and we've made pretty much the same recommendation every time it came forward. Because this is, in order to rezone this parcel from low-density residential to commercial, I think you have to take some special care with it. And they're pretty much going to clear cut the place and grade it and put a big wall along the west side. And if you look, that road that goes up on the west side goes to a home, and it's probably, I don't know, a couple acres there, and then it's immediately next door to Bushnell Nursery, which is gorgeous. They have the most beautiful trees, mature sycamore trees I think I've ever seen. And it's just like walking through a forest there. So, and then this is residential pretty much from Berg all the way to Sierra College on the north side of Douglas. And so when I say special care, some of the suggestions we've made is that they put just 2 buildings on it, and this drains 26.5 acres of drainage comes down from the north. And they've got that culvert that runs down through the middle, and they were going to cover it up. And I'm thinking, you know, you could use some really imagination and put a couple buildings on there and leave a lot of the trees and leave that open space and design it around it and like a park. It'd be beautiful. But I don't know, maybe that's too expensive. We do support adding the pedestrian walkway on Longberg. I wish there was some way to connect it with where it ends at McCargo, which I walk on every day. Unclear where the detention basin is located on this site. I've never been able to see that. But that's pretty much our concerns, that it just fit the site. It could be made to be beautiful with a little bit of extra care. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the public? Okay, online, I think we have someone online.
Chris Johnson, please unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there, this is Chris Johnson. I am also a Granite Bay resident of 33 years. I have visited this site several times, and we need some clarification because there are some facts that have been omitted. One fact, and you may want to go ahead and put the site plan up that shows the commercial property to the east and the parcels to the north, because we've really skipped over 2 parcels where there is currently a residence. And this project is going to have a major impact on that residence. And in all these years, as far as I can tell, no one has actually spoken to these people about it. Now, there may be a language barrier. These are Chinese people that have lived there since the 70s. They have a garden. They have some structural bamboo that grows along that creek. So you can kind of see the corner of the roof of their house there. So these guys are going to be impacted. And to put another retaining wall that's 10 feet, they already have about a 14-foot retaining wall to the north of them. Basically, you've put them into this little valley here. And that's a huge impact. And the fact that they're not in on this discussion is sad. To the east, this is an older photo. The parcel's been developed. That commercial parcel to the east, the reason why they don't have as big of a setback is the thing is basically a ridge of rock. It's solid granite, and that developer was able to build on top of it, and all of the neighbors behind it supported it. So these are very important factors to consider. Now, I think Russ mentioned that he's putting in an acceleration lane. I don't see that anywhere. I see a bicycle lane in this plan. And the reality is, I'm also on the map. We have a traffic committee, and we are really looking at this intersection as a potential for a rotary or something better, because we really need to mitigate the traffic at that point for people turning into Berg, but even more significantly, people turning into Quarry Ponds. So you know, making a decision to make this kind of development on this parcel and ahead of a potential significant traffic mitigation, I think is a huge mistake. And an even greater mistake is the fact that there's only been anecdotal data on the need for these office buildings. I went online the other day and there was like 46 listings in the Granite Bay and Sierra College area for these type of properties. So to make, zoning is a very important thing. I once was a city planner myself, and I am an engineer. I've built a lot of structures. To make this kind of a zoning decision, this zoning is here to protect the community. And so this would be a major impact. And there's no reason why you couldn't put housing on here, because if you go to Dover Street, Stratford Downs, Sino, Quail Oaks, all of those homes are very close to Douglas. So I think that rezoning this is a significant mistake, and it is not the proper use for this land. And we need to be honest about what the surrounding conditions are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else online? Okay, not seeing anyone else online that wishes to speak. We're going to close public comment. I'd like to bring staff back up. Callie, anything you would like to address first that you heard, and then we'll bring up the applicant again.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide additional comment. I really don't have too much more to add, other than with regards to vacancy rates, when staff is reviewing projects, vacancy rates of adjacent uses are not really something that's considered. Having available commercial space within the vicinity does not necessarily preclude a property owner from exercising their property rights and developing what they choose to develop there. With regards to discussions with neighboring property owners, it's my understanding that the applicant did reach out to neighboring property owners on multiple occasions, made multiple attempts, was unsuccessful in those attempts. Other than that, like I said, I really don't have too much more to add, but if there are specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I guess you could, or maybe our engineer could give us a little bit more information on the traffic study.
Sure, yeah, I can let Candace speak to that.
Did you have any specific questions, like on which part of their?
Well, I guess every time traffic comes up in this particular area of Douglas, it seems like the stoplights are way far apart. And so, you know, the traffic might be bunched up, but then once it gets by, then there's, you know, relative freedom to enter the road. And so it hasn't been a problem up to this point in time, other than, I guess, down by the intersection with Auburn Folsom. That was a problem area, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on the concerns that have been expressed about traffic.
Right, so this intersection still operates within community plan level of service metrics. It's with this traffic study for the project plus cumulative, which means built out down the road too, it still would function within the level of service parameters at that intersection.
Okay, I don't think I heard that real well. Your microphone
not on? Am I close enough? Okay, there
might
we
be
go.
better if you come up here.
Can you hear me from here, or do you want me to go up there?
Why don't you come up here, Candace?
So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so for this project, the transportation analysis showed that for the project plus the cumulative build-out scenario, it still meets the level of service requirements in the community plan. So,
Okay.
does that answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more from you while I'm up here?
I'd like to kind of get elaboration a little bit on one of the community members mentioned, which I thought was an excellent point, is a left turn off of Douglas onto Berg. So you studied that specific issue, which if there was really more than perhaps even 3 cars backed up there on Berg, you could easily have, I think, an issue. Would you agree with that?
Are you referring to the left turns from Douglas onto Berg Street?
Correct.
So this is actually one of the longest left-turned pockets on all of Douglas, and the transportation analysis showed that for the project plus cumulative, there's still more than enough queuing length in that left turn pocket. for this project plus future build out. I have the exact numbers on my laptop that I had to leave over there.
Okay. There is apparently confusion about whether or not this project includes an acceleration lane.
It's an acceleration taper, so this project is responsible for constructing the western half of a Plate 116 major encroachment improvement from Berg onto Douglas. So that includes a taper just in front of this in front of this parcel.
Okay.
So it's a taper, not a lane.
So right turns off of Berg.
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions for staff?
I do have another question
Go
for
ahead.
Callie.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. This is actually another follow-up. I'm taking cues from Mr. Hagee today. Here's, so he mentioned general plan modification. This requires a general plan modification. And under those circumstances, there is a requirement to provide a needs assessment. Is that an accurate statement?
That's correct. That's my understanding.
So what needs assessment has been completed?
I apologize. I thought you were referring to the housing no net loss needs assessment.
No.
There's no requirement with the general plan amendment for a project to go through a needs assessment. That's something some projects can provide. That's not something that was required here. As noted, there's nothing in the zoning ordinance, nor is there anything in the Granite Bay Community Plan that states that if there is vacant land, that a project is therefore precluded from proposing a rezone to something that would support vacant land that is already available. So to answer that question, there's not a needs analysis that has been done for commercial uses for this.
Okay. Did I misunderstand you, Anders?
No, you didn't. I mean, generally, when you're making a general plan amendment, you know, I kind of like to know there's a need for making this an amendment.
Yeah, but is that something that's in code or that, to your knowledge? Okay, so this is just something that you would
I think
like
if
to
we, as
see.
planning commissioners, are having to take a look at general plan amendments, and is this the appropriate thing for Placer County to do? And I'd like to know if there's a need for it.
Right, okay. Okay,
Any other questions for staff?
I'm not sure how to ask it, and thank you so much for giving us such a difficult decision to make on our very first day, or to decide upon. Currently, it's zone residential, and I know there are different residential uses. What is the maximum amount of residential units that could be built on this particular lot?
By right, 2, because there's 2 existing parcels. However, based on the size of the parcel, you could have 4. So based on the size of the parcel, 2.13 acres, as well as the zoning, which is a minimum building site of 20,000 square feet. In theory, someone could propose a map to subdivide it into 4 parcels to support 4 homes. That is what the zoning allows for.
And someone could possibly also make a proposal for an apartment complex, as mentioned by one of the opponents, should they want to, and that would have to go through this same exact process of where we're at today.
That's correct.
Okay. Hang on one second, I wrote a couple notes. I think that's it for now.
Great, thank you.
I do have a question, and it has to do with noticing. A comment was made, which I thought was quite interesting, that, you know, people being notified according to a feet, you know, a distance, we're pretty good at that. I think generally we follow that. But notifying the chair of the HOA, well, I wonder if that wouldn't be a good practice. And have we done that in the past, or can you provide any history to, is that something that we might exercise, or have we done?
So it's my understanding that when there is an HOA that requests to be notified for projects, that's when we would typically send out those notices. The other thing I wanted to note is that in addition to the public notices that went out, there's been a development proposal pending sign on this site since 2016. That has contact information for staff as well as a description of what is being proposed. So if there is someone who was outside of the hearing noticing radius, then there was still some visual there on the site itself to provide notification.
When you're done, I'm sorry, I thought of another.
Okay, go ahead. That's good.
So, throughout the course of the MAC meetings, starting far as back as 2014, mostly what I'm hearing is they just want not that use at all. They've denied the particular use. And so as they were denying the use, were they also at the same time saying, well, if the building was moved to this location, I might consider it? And then when it came back in the different location, is one of the still main reasons for denial is the actual use itself?
Yes.
Is that the primary purpose for what the MAC's denying?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, bring up the applicant again to address what they heard. You can start with statements about what you heard, and then we'll follow up with questions.
Well, it's not anything other than Granite Bay, like me, everybody wants no growth. Once it's happened, this is not a home site. I think everybody understands on Douglas, just like the parcel right next door that is the Quarry Ridge office buildings, that was a home site there too, but it doesn't make sense. If 4 homes went in there, and they were worried about traffic with they're on Douglas. That's an uncomfortable place to be, but the trees would have to come down, the paving would go in, they'd want backyards with landscaping, and the noise factor is actually more than an office building is. It's not going to stay a wooded tree area, but it doesn't make sense to be a residential. Apartment complex, that would go through the same process, and I don't think that's a smart concept on a busy street like this. There's 50, as I was pointed out by Suzanne Jones, that she said there was 55,000 cars going both ways on Douglas on busy days, and I thought, wow, that's significant. So I think it's not going to be an impact with the traffic as everybody's worried about, because that's what staff has pointed out on several occasions. And there is a need. The office buildings are all owner-occupied units. If they're vacant, that's because they're still doing their remodeling or their improvements, their tenant improvements. And these have 2 people that want to take over the 2 projects, and own there. So there is a need, but people want to have their own building. They don't want to be in a complex on Douglas somewhere in a high rise. And there's a lot of office space in Roseville that's available, but if you're a Granite Bay resident and you want your office in Granite Bay, this is the perfect prime location. Got anything to add to the comments, or?
I guess we can go back to the wall. I think Ms. Johnson mentioned the 10-foot wall. Again, viewed from this parcel to the north, it would be a 6-foot wall. 10 foot would be viewed looking this direction. It would be 6 looking this direction. And the wall is being put in because it's, like Callie mentioned, it's Placer County code when you have commercial abutting residential.
So it's 6 foot on their
So
side.
it's 6, yeah, not 10 feet.
And go back to that for a second. And the resident that's right behind there, that home there, they're the only resident. Milano Court's passed that. That resident that butts up attempted to go to the home. There was a dog running, became a little aggressive. So we've called. We pulled up the county records. We called. And we've also sent out multiple letters. There's no response. And that's how I would be if I didn't care one way or another on a project. They didn't respond one way or the other. So there was an attempt, and that's the neighbor that it would affect. The other neighbor, that land's owned by Bushnell, which, you know, knowing him personally, he's not gonna give me a response of negativity as well either. And he owns the land adjacent and the adjacent to that, so, that's the biggest impact around, and those are the two residents that didn't respond negative or positive.
Okay, we'll move to questions from commissioners for you.
I just have one question. This may be just an affirmation now since we're a little further along in the discussion. Would you be willing to go back to the MAC? Your eyes got a little large there, didn't they?
I've never been so scared of my life. When I walked out, I said, Tony, you gotta wear a tank top next time, because they wanted to hang me.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. But, you know, this has been a very unique week for me, quite frankly, too, because the inputs have been pretty fast and furious. And I certainly respect, I mean, I've tried to respect everybody's opinion and draw these things together. And you know, Mr. Hagee's departed now, but just for a minute, I presume, but he really tries to find middle ground. Frankly, a lot of us do on this, you know, commission. We have 4 individuals here who have spoken basically against development, period, dot, with the possibility, I suppose, that at some point they might support residential, because that's the way it's zoned. We have another who had a little more flexibility in her views, it seemed. And then some of the inputs that I've received, they're kind of all over the place, but there's some flexibility in there, by and large. You know, we're all trying to bring this community together around perhaps this proposal, although I think some will oppose it no matter what. But, you know, if I offered a motion that we table this, we bring it back after further review by the MAC, would you be willing to give that a shot one more time? And I guess I would say just this point, I will go with you.
So I have met and had meetings with Sandra.
Yeah, Sandra.
Back 2014, and had positive response. The problem is, I've been given direction, and then the board changes, and then everybody's got a new opinion. It's difficult to get people to. So the easiest thing is just to say deny. I don't understand how this was approved. Why is this parcel more appropriate for office than this parcel? And I was trying to comprehend that and understand myself, because this doesn't make sense for residential. It doesn't. We're actually retaining more trees than they were. So I'm kind of confused. This makes sense for what it is.
If Mr. DiMatteo were here, we'd have 7 commissioners. 4 of those commissioners would not have been on this commission when that particular parcel was approved. So, you know, I don't have the details on it. Perhaps the others might, but
Mac even supported that.
Yeah, okay.
Which, and then the reason is the board changes, and I get it. So what one group might say, this is a great brick building, but I like a stone building. So one group says, yes, this is a great use. And the next group comes along and says it doesn't.
Here's the interesting question, though, or interesting thing. I saw a bit of a give towards a position that I've heard quite a bit this week, and that is that, you know, going to 2 buildings would be a viable alternative for you, and looking at providing a little more buffer between this proposal and Douglas might also be, from an engineering perspective and also from your perspective, viable as well. Both of those things seem to be of interest to many of the community members in the MAC.
Which, by combining the 2 buildings,
right, bringing it to 2 buildings,
they're going to be larger, and is that what they want? Is two buildings rather than 4, and they'll be happy?
Right. Again, that's what some want. Others probably not. But the idea, I think, more than anything else, would be to move it back from Douglas. And that is definitely an objective that I've heard quite a bit.
So if we moved it to the back and had the parking lot in front as we had originally proposed and just had two buildings, is that what you're suggesting?
I think we would have to examine the parking requirements and that sort of thing again. I mean, look, I don't know that we want to get too tactical here and discuss this in too much detail, because this is probably not the place. The real question I'm asking is, would you be comfortable if we tabled this and took it back to the MAC? If the answer is no, that's a perfectly acceptable answer as well. I'm just curious if you would be comfortable with doing that.
The MAC was so adamant, and that's the best way to put it. It's like every other developer that's ever done something that's gone through, we're going to win this fight because we don't want it. That group was adamant about it. I don't think there's anything I can do or say or shift the building that would satisfy the MAC. And like I said, they're passionate, and that's great.
Okay, so your answer was
I
you would
would prefer,
not to.
unless you were contacted by the MAC and they said, we'll find neutral ground. If he'll work with us on how to design it, because that's what I wanted to do. But there is no neutral ground with them.
Yeah.
It's either yay or nay.
Well, they vote, so that becomes
Yeah,
yay
they
or nay.
voted.
The only thing I'll tell you is that I guess I could not make that claim. I could not tell you that I could find neutral ground. However, I've definitely seen neutral ground, and you seem to move towards neutral ground as well. But that's okay. If the answer is you'd prefer not to, then we'll just vote it straight up, and that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
guys
you.
can be seated. I think we'll bring it to the commission for discussion at this point. And this is a time where we kind of offer our thoughts and really kind of direct ourselves towards a motion. And so I open it up. Oh,
Chair, if I could just,
Yeah.
Before you start your deliberation, on this item, I think there's been enough items that have been raised and things that staff needs to look into that I would suggest continuing this to an open date so that we can go back and take a look at those items and make sure we have a full and complete package to bring back to your commission.
Okay.
So I wanted to identify that before you start deliberations on things.
It's definitely, okay,
So,
thank you.
Chairman, I would concur with council's comments, but I would also suggest, any discussion or feedback, additional feedback back from the commission would be helpful for staff, as we move forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I was going to make the same recommendation, mostly because of one of the items that was brought up by my fellow commissioner, and also being our first meeting, I feel like I could dig deeper into it and maybe help be a part of the process of coming together in a mutual decision that works for both parties inside. So I'm in favor of postponing to a future meeting.
For the staff, I would agree with postponing the meeting. Looking at the project, want some justification to change a land use. It seems like, in my mind, there's a whole lot of office and commercial in Granite Bay. Do we really need it? On the other hand, looking at this site and its configuration with adjacent commercial uses, I can also see why this would be appropriate. As far as the design is concerned, I think they've done a good job on design. I don't know if I want to see that building pushed back any farther. I think the 35 feet probably is okay, since 20 feet is across the street. So those are kind of my thoughts about where we are, but I would like to see the justification, also findings for removal of the 4 residential units.
Yeah, I guess I would go along with continuing it, but I guess the question I'd have about going back to the MAC is anything going to change? Other than the analysis is going on, but I kind of question whether going to the MAC again would really change anything with regards to the project, but there are some questions that need to be answered.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay.
The only comment I would have was also I'd want to hear from staff about the no net loss on residential for this area. And also I would recommend that the neighbors and the folks that are here to talk about it today look at the 2 traffic studies that were done. One was done in 2016. The latest one was done in July of 2021, and it talks about the increase in traffic and how that's going to be offset, the difference between residential and commercial for this small area, and it wasn't significant, at least according to these traffic reports. Also, the comment about the trees, where if there were 4 residential homes, large residential homes, on these lots, they would also lose a tremendous amount of trees, especially since I did go to this area. There were a lot of dead trees, as the arborist had noted. Also, sending the applicant back to the MAC after this long a period of time to redesign is very, very challenging, and I don't know if that would be undue effort on the applicant's part to try and redesign with a committee that does keep changing, that has already said that they're opposed to this effort. And those are the only comments that I have.
Just to add some thoughts, I hold the MACs in high regard. I really do. And while it might be difficult, I think they should show an effort to go back to the MAC and think about maybe if they can the MAC can clarify perhaps after this discussion what it is they would really want to see. This is a rezone, and that's really important to show the benefit to the community, in my opinion. So I think it'd be worth a discussion. I know I'm disagreeing with some of my colleagues here, but I think that would show a really good faith effort. I know it'd be difficult. You've done it many times over many years, but I think it would show some effort for the community that spoke. We haven't really heard one public person in support of this project. And if there are some, maybe we should have them show up. Try to get them to show up and share about that. So I think the public, demonstrating the benefit to the community, and I really look to the MACs for that. So I'd appreciate more opportunity for the MAC to get engaged with this project. It's a rezone. So that's just some thoughts. I agree. I think continuing the item, particularly around no loss in residential, is important.
If it does go back to the MAC, I think probably 2 decisions. One, do they agree with the general plan amendment? And then second, seems to be design. And it seems like the MAC was more concerned about design than it was in the land use. And for me, as a planning commissioner, changing the land use is a big deal. I think design you can work with. So.
Yeah, I think you would. Great point. I think you'd have differing views. Some are interested in design, some are interested in others. But in any event, we're not going to direct the applicant to go back to the MAC. I certainly am going to encourage it, and I would ask for a 5-minute adjournment after we conclude this, because I would like to talk to the applicant for a minute.
One more thing. Okay, the Granite Bay general plan was amended, about 4 or 5 years ago, and the general plan didn't include any rezoning.
So you want me to give you some history, especially for the newer commissioners. So we updated the Granite Bay Community Plan back in 2012. The prior plan was adopted in 1989. When we went through the community plan update, when we started the process, we did look at potential land use changes, but the decision was made that we were not going to address any land use changes at that time back in 2012. We actually started the process a few years before that. So no land use changes were considered with that update in 2012. Because of that, staff and everyone else anticipated that we will be seeing some general plan amendments and rezonings coming forward, because none of those land uses have changed, in over 30 years. And as everybody knows, the dynamic in Granite Bay has changed quite a bit in the last 30 years. So this is something, from a staff level, we did anticipate seeing some of these land use changes. And this just happens to be one of them that's under, consideration and discussion right now. So hopefully that helps as far as some background.
Yeah, so basically, pretty much, every project that we see along Douglas Boulevard and other places involves a rezone. That's one of the effects of that decision that was made.
Well, there has been a handful of land use changes in Granite Bay, since adoption of the 2012 update.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the clarification, I appreciate that.
So I guess I'm ready to make a motion if, and the motion basically is to table this, discussion until, staff.
Continue.
Continue, okay.
To an open date, we would prefer.
Move, that this discussion be continued to an open date, pending, resolution of some issues by staff.
Second.
First and a second, we'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner Powers. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for everyone's discussion. I know it took us a while to get to a continuance, but I think we were helpful in the direction of what we want to see next time, this is presented. So, thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second timed item, appeal of the zoning administrator's denial of a variance. Members of the public may now
Mr.
raise their
Chair.
hands, press star 9 if you are calling in.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, could I get a 5-minute adjournment?
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back.
You've been waiting for a long time.
Okay, I'm gonna get us back in session. Welcome back. So now we're gonna move on to our second timed item, appeal the zoning administrator's denial of a variance. Members of the public may now raise their hands, press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Bennett Smithhart, Associate Planner, will be presenting on this item. Welcome, Bennett.
Thank you. And good morning, commissioners, and welcome Commissioner Powers and Commissioner Dahlgren. We're glad to have you here. As the chair said, I'm Bennett Smithhart with the Planning Services Division. Our next item today is the Verizon sign appeal. So the Verizon sign building is located in Granite Bay, in the Granite Bay Village Shopping Center. So the shopping center is located southeast of the intersection of Douglas and Auburn Folsom Road. It is zoned commercial plan development, combining design scenic corridor, and is designated commercial in the Granite Bay Community Plan. Have an aerial of the building. It was recently constructed in the shopping center. It was approved at your December 2000 Planning Commission and a conditional use permit for the additional building. Previously, it was a parking area, and they converted that into a commercial parcel to develop the Verizon building. I'll just leave it on the aerial for you all. So the newly created parcel is about half an acre, 0.052, or 0.52 acres, so right at a half an acre. It is was approved, as I said earlier, in 2000, the end of 2000. The building has been constructed. Shortly after approval, they started the construction process, and it's fully built out now in the shopping center and being used as a Verizon retail store. So in August 2021, a sign permit was approved prior to the construction of the building, allowing for 2 Verizon signs about 50 square feet each. They're located on the west and the east sides of the building. And they basically read Verizon, they're backlit signs, and they have a small check mark with the Verizon logo on there. So the applicant is seeking, with the sign permit or sign variance, they were seeking the approval for the matching signs so they can have signs on each of the facades. The northern and southern facades currently, as it stands, do not have signs on them. So it went to the February 17th, 2022 zoning administrator hearing. During the public hearing, we had one member speak opposed to the sign variance request. The concerns raised were questioning the need for additional signage and the impact on the surrounding commercial properties. They felt like it was too much signage for the Granite Bay community. After discussion, the zoning administrator determined that there were no special circumstances that warranted the additional signage, and the strict application of the zoning ordinance did not deprive subject parcel of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and within the same zone. The zoning administrator stated the 2 additional signs for total are excessive for the Granite Bay community, and the Granite Bay community plan prohibits excessive signage. So on February 28th, 2020, an appeal of the zoning administrator's denial was filed by Bill Batterman. The appellants submitted supplemental information on the appeal on March 20th, 22, and that's attachment A in your staff report. The appellant put forth the following issues for the basis of the appeal. First one is the building cannot be identified from neighboring properties and streets. And the second one, Verizon is being denied the same consideration that's been given to Dutch Brothers, Susie's Restaurants, Arco AM/PM, Speedway, Wells Fargo Bank, Chase Bank, Carl's Jr., which is being currently renovated to be a Chipotle, and Taco Bell, all of which are nearby and have 3 or 4 signs. Okay, so the first point, the building cannot be seen from neighboring properties and streets. So the first thing I did was go out to the site and walk around and see where it's visible from. So generally speaking, the building is about 170 feet setback from Douglas Boulevard, and just with the topography, it's about 10 feet higher. There's about 75 feet of landscape between the building and Douglas itself. So the first place I walked around on the sidewalk right in front of the building and took this photograph, so standing and looking directly in. So taking a look at that, I can see the building. I did want to note that along this strip, there are several deciduous trees, and they're not fully, into their summer bloom. So, a couple months from now, these trees might have a full canopy, which will have some restricted views. So driving along Auburn Folsom, I was able to see the Verizon sign clearly. So I went into the Granite Bay Village Shopping Center and kind of walked around. The photograph on the left, figure 2, is basically just standing somewhat in the middle of their large parking lot, centrally located. So looking in, you can see a partial view of the Verizon sign. Since Verizon is such a large, commonly known business, just looking at Verizon, even seeing the sign partially, you kind of know it's a Verizon store. Going to the east side, figure 3, this is the main entrance, just on the right beside the circulation. On this edge, looking directly in, you can see the Verizon as well. So for most areas within the development and on Auburn Folsom, I was able to identify that it is a Verizon building. Number 2, Verizon is being denied the same consideration that has been given to Dutch Brothers, Susie's, AM/PM, Speedway, Wells Fargo Bank, Chase Bank, Chipotle, and Taco Bell. So just to dive into this, because I did go out on site, and there are definitely buildings nearby that have more than 2 signs. So some of these buildings and signs have been around for 30 to 40 years. because they, you know, basically all the buildings they identified were pretty much in the, you know, within, you know, a mile of the site. So this is some of the older parts of Granite Bay that's been around for quite a while. So these signs were approved for various reasons, mainly sign permits. They were approved through design reviews. We had one sign variance, the Chase building in 2011. A sign variance was approved for that, so it was approved through a sign variance. And some of these buildings are just old and we don't have the paperwork. It was before we had digital records, and so they might be somewhere, but I was not able to find, you know, some of these sign permits. So they either were constructed without a permit or we just don't have the records. In the staff report, I mentioned a couple of things about, you know, some of these land uses have different needs for signs. You know, I think a couple of fast food places were mentioned. You know, a fast food place is kind of a spontaneous destination. Like you're driving around and you're hungry and you're like, oh, there's, you know, a fast food place, and you roll in. Versus retail like Verizon. Like if I wanted to upgrade my phone, I would probably find Verizon on my phone, maybe navigate there and go there. It's less of a spontaneous destination. You'll plan it out. So that, and with, you know, typical fast food architecture and site layout, some of these have multiple fronts. So going into that, I wanted to basically, why some have more is because some buildings have more fronts. Right now, the Verizon's main entrance on the east side, then we have the west side facing Auburn Folsom Road. I believe the Chipotle was one example, maybe a couple hundred yards away. That one does have more than two signs, but it also has more than two fronts. Just having two entrances, you know, it has the side facing Douglas and the main entrance. So basically each site, each building is different and has its different needs and different design that led to having multiple signs. And one thing I wanted to identify, I'm sure will come up in conversation, is what our zoning ordinance defines a building frontage as. So I'll just go ahead and read that definition for you all. Building frontage means the wall area of the building which faces circulation area open to the general public, which has an entrance in regular use by the general public, and or which has a main window display. So that is the definition of a frontage. So going into CEQA, the denial of a variance is statutorily exempt for environmental review pursuant to provisions of Section 15270 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 183610G of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance. Projects are disapproved. So therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission deny the appeal filed by Mr. Batterman with Sign of Light Incorporated on behalf of Verizon and uphold the zoning administrator's February 17th, 2020 decision to deny the variance for the Verizon sign project, supported by findings stated in the staff report. Available for any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Bridget.
I just have one question. If AM/PM, Susie's Restaurant, or some of the other buildings that you went back 30 years and they've been here for a long time, if they were to remodel and have to reapply for a permit and new signs, would you make them comply with the current ordinance, sign guidelines?
Yes, so some of these buildings have AM/PM did, I believe, a year or two come in for a remodel, and they have 2 wall signs on their new building. I did look into Susie's. It might be an incomplete application, but I see where we have a sign permit for 2 signs on their building, and there was no indication of how 4 signs got put up based on our sign permit records.
Just to elaborate on that, though, some of those signs could have been grandfathered in, so you know, we would look at that. So if they were installed at a certain time before any, you know, whatever regulations were in place, they could be grandfathered in as well.
And if
So
they
que-
were grandfathered in, they're allowed to continue the same amount of signage that they had at that time. So even if they update the sign, as long as they're not expanding the size of it, they would still be allowed to keep it. And if I could also, I wanted to mention one other thing. The sign ordinance that the county has in its code, it's indifferent as to content. So it's one of these things that when you evaluate, you should be evaluating regardless of whether this was Verizon or some other entity. You're looking at size, width, kind of location, viewability, all of those types of things, but it's irrespective of what type of business.
So question under the code, Bennett. If the signs were smaller, so the total square footage, could you have 4 signs on that building? Is that primarily, is it saying the code says you can only have a building on each side, or is it based on the square footage that this is not compliant?
It's basically the lack of frontages. So if it was, they had a frontage on each side, then you can have 4. So it's the amount of, we determined it was 2 frontages with the approval of the sign permit last year. So you get 2 based on the frontages.
All right, thank you.
Bennett, the applicant, as you pointed out, and in the staff package as well, kind of pointed out that there were a variety of different fast food restaurants and things like that in the area that had multiple signs on frontages and that sort of thing. And the defense of that was that these places were actually kind of impulse stops as opposed to Verizon being a stop that might be something that you actually go to. You leave your house planning to go there, whereas you might not do that for a Taco Bell. Correct?
Yes, just general discussion of the needs of signs for
Right. So
type of uses.
So is that differentiation specified in code now?
No, it is not.
Okay.
And I would say too that differentiation is not something that you can use as a basis because of the types of uses. So
I'm with you.
If I could also just mention in that same vein, if there are other signs or other businesses that have signs that are not in conformance with our sign ordinance, that may be a possibility, but that wouldn't be a reason. Just because you have a lot of bad offenders isn't a basis to then say this should be allowed as well.
Right. So I mean, you're really kind of making the point here, but it's not in code, and yet we kind of use it in here to defend what we currently have, right? But it's not specified in code. So that leads me to the next point. I'm asking your opinion on this. Is this something that needs to be reviewed by staff? Because we have either placed the zoning administrator in a position where he or she is dealing with out-of-date or poorly defined code and has to defend these things by essentially using things that aren't even in code. So perhaps is this something that staff might need to take a look at going forward? Is this, I guess what I'm saying specifically is this section of code something that staff should review in your opinion?
So staff is not responsible for policy changes that comes from our board, but I do believe just with changing needs in the community, having some updates to the sign ordinance could be a positive thing.
Okay, and just for public disclosure, we had this correspondence on this. Right, you're absolutely right. This would be a recommendation to the board, so that's how it would process through. Okay.
And I'll add to that, from the planning director's perspective, our sign ordinance has not been updated for years and years. And as you know, technology has changed with, the types of signs, lighting. So is it due for an update? Absolutely. It's actually on our list of many projects. It's not a high priority now, obviously, that could be moved up, but anyway, no, you raise a good point, but that's kind of where we're at with that.
And one of those things, some of you may have not been out there, some of you have, but if you're coming down Auburn Folsom in either direction, you have to get to 30 degrees roughly before you're even going to pick up that sign, that Verizon sign. So 60 degrees out, or from 90 to 30 degrees, you are not even aware that that building is a Verizon building.
Can you go back to the pictures of the?
Yes, I can.
And I think we've all been there, driving around mall parking lots looking for island stores that have one sign on the door and you're on the other three sides. It is crazy. So this is exactly the kind of situation you have here. In any event, that's why I think code might need to be looked at, and that's the end of my comments.
Anything else? But just to, a lot of these shopping areas have additional signage at entrances. And does this have a similar opportunity for Verizon perhaps to purchase additional signage on an entrance to the area? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And maybe that could help resolve. I think sometimes people come to us for direction. I have this problem, what can I do? If I can't do this, what can I do? But I've seen a lot of shopping areas have additional signage, some larger, some smaller, but does this have that opportunity too?
So since it's a part of a developed shopping center, I believe for this one, they're only allowed the shopping center name monument sign for the shopping center.
Okay. Okay. We will bring up any other questions for staff? We'll bring up the applicant. Is the applicant here? Or
Yes.
the appellant? The appellant?
Appreciate your listening to our appeal on this and having us in front of you. Bennett, can I possibly have you run the slide for me? Would you mind?
I'm sorry, would you tell us your name?
Yes, my name is Cindy Funk, and I am operations and permitting for Sign of Light for Bill Batterman. First off, I feel like this is such a little thing in consideration after listening to the first case. It's just like, this is so small. We're not asking for special treatment, and initially we did ask for 4 signs based on the fact that there are 4 frontages on this building, and that is not always the case. Bennett kind of alluded to that on some of the cases. However, the signs, the signage on the buildings that are standalone all have multiple 3 and 4 signs. It isn't just the 2 sign case because they have that ability. The majority of these buildings don't have that ability. They have the ability on the frontage right in front of their door, or possibly if they're on the corner of a complex, they can have 2 signs because that's just all there is. In the particular case here, when you're looking at figure 3 on here, that Verizon sign on that side is required because it is over the door, the entrance to the store. You cannot see that from any of the streets in the neighborhood. You can only see that from Dominic's across, or possibly the Ace. And when you're on the other side, over here in figure 2, that's right next to the Dutch Brothers, which did apply for special consideration and was granted it. And they have signage and logos on all sides. Those pictures are also in your packets. If you go to, let's see, we go to 16, pages 16 and 17. Over there. No? Not, could you go to pages 16 and 17, please?
Oh, we got it. We have it here.
Oh, you have them there? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you're looking at those pages, those give you a better idea of the visibility. If you look at page 16, that's from the intersection of Auburn, Folsom, and Douglas. That was taken going southbound. And as you can see, there is no visibility whatsoever. You do not know that that's a Verizon store. You cannot tell, as Mr. Woodward indicated, until you get almost across from the store, can you tell that there's a Verizon sign there. And there's also, if you, it's not up there now, that there's a picture that Bennett put in there that shows the signage that faces directly out on the west side. There's 2 trees planted right there. You're right, you can see it right now, but it won't be long. And that will block what view you do have that is blocked on page right now, currently on page 16 to 17. Let's see what the other pages would be helpful. The west side, that's what I was just referring to, will be blocked. The north side actually has more visibility than the west or east, and that currently has no signage. And of course, when they made the decision of where to put the 2 signs, when they were originally told we couldn't have 4 signs, was we want one facing out on Auburn Folsom, and they had to have one on the east side. If we'd had a preference, we probably would have chosen to put it on the north side. When you're coming up, probably the best view of any signage would be coming from the south, going north on Auburn Folsom, and you can just catch, you can see it in time to turn in. Because this is a very busy intersection, and I do live within about a half mile of here, so I'm very well familiar with this intersection. And most times of the day, that's busy. It doesn't have to be lunchtime. It does not have to be commute time. That's a very busy intersection, and people are saying, okay, I know it's in here somewhere. Do I turn here or do I turn here? They have to go beyond. There really isn't a great place to turn around once you pass Douglas for your turnaround to come back. And typically what happens, people, well, I'll try and remember to do that another day. The business in this store is impacted. I've been there, I've watched it. I've spent a lot of time up there trying to determine what kind of impact not having the signs has. And I've also tried to determine what kind of impact if the signs were there. And it doesn't affect the neighborhood. It's not shining in someone's yard. There are no houses within that. The person that spoke at the original hearing was concerned that, well, why do they even need another sign? Wasn't looking at it, of course, from a business standpoint. But they were in a neighborhood that wasn't even anywhere visible to the shopping center. So I really don't feel like, and then he had also indicated in here, as from, like you had brought up about the convenience store, or the restaurants and the spontaneous use of, the banks don't fall under that spontaneous use. They all have extra signage. And as I said, all these other places are standalone buildings just like this, and they all have 4 signs. And that's really basically all I can say is we don't feel like it would be a major imposition on anybody. It would not impact the Granite Bay area. There's certainly much more impact coming to the Granite Bay area from the buildings, the new homes that are being built across the street, or the new bridge that's going in down farther beyond that development that they were discussing earlier. So we would like to ask your consideration that you please consider this and give us the additional signs. Is there any questions?
Yeah, we can move to questions.
Let me see. Are you asking for 4 signs?
We're asking for 4 signs, 1 on each frontage.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You had said there were 4 frontages, and Bennett said there were 2 frontages.
Currently, there are 2 frontages with signage, but there are 4, as you can see, this is a standalone building. And every one of this side has no signage, and the opposite side has no signage. It's just facing into the parking lot. If you're at Dominic's, you can tell that's the Verizon store. And if you're directly out in front of the west side, you can see it's a Verizon store. But from the intersections, you cannot tell where the store is, as you could see in that one page that I pointed out. That's your view. And that picture was taken in like January. There's 2 pictures here. They were both taken. One, I think, was taken in December. So that would have been with the least amount of leaves on those trees, as he was referring to the deciduous trees. Anything else?
Any other questions at this point? Okay, thank you. We'll bring you back if we have more. Let's go ahead and open up for public comment.
Afternoon, I'm back. Sandy Harris. Frankly, I don't even see the signs. I see an ugly building every time I go up there in that shopping center. It doesn't fit in with anything that was there. But I don't know why they need 4 signs. When you're driving down Douglas, the building just, it's right above you there. It just sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. I think that's Susie's restaurant behind it there, and you see the difference in the architecture. They made no attempt to fit into that shopping center. And those things that stick up there, those facades or whatever they are, I keep thinking someday the wind's going to blow them over. But anyway, I don't think they need more signs, and I was probably the person who spoke at the last hearing. The one thing we have in Granite Bay is too many signs. And people are starting to complain about all the illegal signs that just pop up all over the streets. But anyway, that's just my opinion. It's an ugly building. It doesn't need more signs.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Is anyone online? Okay, we'll close public comment. And, just want to, Bennett, is there anything you want to add that you thought about or discuss? Not required, but just want to give you an opportunity. It's not on. Can we have the additional mic turned on, please?
Hello, is it working now? All right. I have no additional comments.
Okay.
I might add to that.
Okay.
I want to go back to the building frontage and the definition. So the building frontage, means a wall. This is defined in the ordinance. The wall area of a building which faces a circulation area open to the general public, you can probably make the argument that, there's circulation around all this building, which has an entrance in regular use by the general public, which on this building, we have one entrance in front of the building, and/or which has a main window display. So, there's somewhat of an interpretation there as far as what is a window display. I mean, I guess if we went back 40 years ago, it's pretty clear what a window display looks like, right? But, and I think the zoning administrator in his review of this application denial determined that, the other 2 sides did not meet that definition. And that was his decision. But it was based primarily on that building frontage issue.
Thank you.
So if I understand you correctly, the and/or, if the business owner were to decide to put a window display as they saw fit in one of those side windows, particularly the one on the left, facing the parking lot, that would be...
I think that would meet the intent of this definition in the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess part of signs is to identify buildings, whatever, and maybe our code does need to be updated, because if I were to do it, I think I would have put one on the north and the south side and not the one facing Douglas Boulevard, in order that people traveling can actually identify the business. And I think that's important, so that you're not getting up, right up to the building, oh, I gotta make a fast right turn.
Yeah.
You really want to give people a little bit of warning, so they can make their choices from a traffic standpoint. So, possibly we need to look at our code again about this, and with the intent of identifying buildings for good access, a flow of access. So, kind of my thought.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions for the appellant? Any need for that? Is there anything else you'd like to say? I want to give you this opportunity as the appellant. Can you hear me from back here? Yes. Well, no, but people online, would need to hear you. We can bring you a mic.
First off, I do permitting for not all the state, but I go down to Fresno and all the way up to the Oregon border and all the way east and west. And yes, sign programs need to be updated, and I would wholeheartedly like to help contribute to whatever you're putting in there. Because signage has changed considerably. The kind of signage, how they light it, neon is obviously very obsolete and very expensive. LED is much more friendly, green if you will. You don't require near as much energy to run an LED sign. Other than that, I feel like it's an impact on the business, and it does not impact the feel. I know that when the ruling was made last time, he was afraid it took away from the country feel of the neighborhood, and I absolutely can't agree with that. And I do agree, oh, she's already gone, it's an ugly building. There's no question about that, but I don't have any say on that. We just permit the signs. But I'm hoping that you'll see the business impact. I had put in my paperwork that the traffic is a big issue, and Mr. Hogg just mentioned that in his. It's very difficult to make a quick decision to turn, and there aren't any good places to turn around there. And there's a lot of incidents, more down below that, Eureka and up, but I hope you'll give it some consideration. Is there any more questions?
Okay, thank you, Cindy. I think I'll bring it back to the commission now for discussion and a motion.
A question of the staff. In a motion, could we recommend taking it off of that, yes, west side, and just have 3 signs? One on the north, one on the south, and then one on the east? And I would do that with a finding that this is for improved circulation and identification. I just don't see a need for that sign faced directly on Douglas Boulevard, I really don't.
So the only action before your commission right now is the variance for the
Okay.
2 signs, not the existing approval that allowed the original 2 signs. And I would also note that staff's recommendation and the findings contained in the staff report are for a denial. If the commission is entertaining the possibility of allowing the signs, that would be something where I would suggest that we take tentative action today with direction to staff to return with findings supportive of it.
Yeah, I guess I'll talk really, since it's quiet, so it must be my turn. You know, I don't see any real problem with putting 4 signs on this building. I just don't think it's gonna matter all that much to the community or whatever, and I live there. On the other hand, I'm also very sensitive to supporting our zoning administrator, who clearly has a difficult job. And so as I read the staff report, not being pre-decision or anything, obviously need to come in and listen. That's how I got to the idea that perhaps we need to have the code looked at, and that we could, you know, perhaps support the zoning administrator's denial here, but at the same time, ask the staff to review this code and possibly, you know, particularly in this case and others like it perhaps, you know, where you have island stores, you know, show some latitude there, you know, and then ultimately Verizon could take advantage of that. You know, obviously the wheels of government grind slowly, but at some point we will, you know, be able to bring that forward for consideration, and once, you know, assuming it were approved, then you could take advantage of that, that Verizon could take advantage of that. So those are my thoughts, but I'm willing to listen to everybody else as well.
How long would that process take, though, when, you know, you're 2 years down the road and you still have, you know, I look at the sign, you know, from Auburn Folsom Douglas Boulevard. I see it in the daytime and nighttime temporarily. Could they put a little Verizon sign in the glass window part till we do something to update our sign ordinance. But I feel like, oh, it's so tough. We're here to support our businesses, but we're also here not to have a neon sign city and to keep our city looking more subdued and nice. Yet at the same time, I can obviously see I would miss it and drive by and have to go back around. I feel like that sign missing, at least in that one section, makes it difficult. So, and I respect, Mr. Bennett and all the work that he's done as well, and concur that perhaps maybe we support his appeal, support his denial of the appeal, but yet give direction to staff to go ahead and bring that up higher up on your million of lists of things to do.
Yeah, and if I could address that, updating a sign ordinance, it is a major undertaking because you're talking about all the businesses in the county. We would want to, have a robust public outreach process as part of that. So, yeah, it would not be a short process. You would definitely, you're talking 12 months or longer, in my opinion. But yeah, whenever you're changing a business's sign or the regulations regarding signage, it impacts livelihoods. And so, yeah, we would want to, if we did it, we would want to do it right and make sure we did the right public outreach.
I don't know, I mean, it makes sense, it needs more signs. It's so obvious. I understand the limitations due to the ordinance, but I think this island building does create a unique circumstance. And it's necessary to be visible. And I don't think, relying just on, everyone going to the store is gonna try to navigate there. I don't think that's reasonable. But I don't know the findings, the exact language for the findings, but I do feel like it's obvious that this building needs more signs. And I think it's a benefit to the community to have that. And I understand, though, the decision the zoning administrator made. I totally get that. I think if there's a way we can make findings to make this an exception as an island building with, and they probably have some direction around how to make or create more frontages, which doesn't sound that difficult to me. I'm maybe surprised they haven't gone and done that work already. It sounds like a window display might allow for a frontage. But I do, it's just so obvious to me that more signage is necessary. That's kind of where I'm at, especially after reading the documents, hearing the presentation.
Especially since council had let us know that the type of business isn't germane to signage requirements, and that was staff's reasoning for the reason that Dutch Brothers, Susie's, Arco, and PM Speedway, Wells Fargo, and Chase don't have the same nearby requirements, and they have 3 and 4 signs. And it was the type of business that was used for the denial, and since that's not a contributory factor, then I also agree with you. It looks like it needs an additional sign on that one, what I call a frontage, even though it's by definition, because they don't either have a window display or a public entrance. It doesn't face circulation, but if you were parking on that side, it kind of would be facing circulation. So I'm in a quandary. Also want to support the zoning administrator in their decision, but the argument that staff used isn't really germane because the type of business isn't, and they don't have the same advantages that the businesses right around them do with 3 and 4 signs.
I guess one comment was made that Dutch Bros was approved and given 3 signs. Is that true that Dutch Bros has gone through this process and was given an exception? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe Dutch Bros, and I want to say Dutch Bros became, or Brothers, whatever it's called, came before this commission, as well as the Verizon building when it came through, if I'm not mistaken. So it would have been approved through that process.
Do you know if those were the same zoning administrators? Would you know?
It was definitely the same zone administrator.
Oh, so there's a zone administrator. I see. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe a couple things. It's probably unfortunate that Susie's right next door has 4 signs all around her building. And so at any rate, when you look at the variance justification, they're talking about, granting a variance, then you're encouraging other people to want to come forward for that same thing. And so maybe the unfortunate thing here is Susie's is apparently not in compliance, but they have 4 signs. I did, when I went there, I looked at the map, and somehow on the map I had this building on the opposite side of the street, so I wound up driving around Taco Bell and wondering, now where is this? Where is this? But at any rate, when I got turned around, I did find that I looked up and there was Verizon sign, and there's an entrance right beside it. So anyway, I felt like there was pretty good visibility just from the front, actually coming from the south. And of course, when you get around in the back where the other entrance is, it stands right out too. So at any rate, I guess problem from coming from the north, that they showed as a blank wall there, so somebody coming from the north wouldn't see the Verizon store. But at any rate, for me, it's kind of a tough call.
So if I could help with the discussion, there's several options here for the commission. I'm going to list just the ones that I'm hearing. But if you were to deny the variance, you can do that today, make the necessary findings. If you decide to approve one or both signs requested, we would ask that you make a tentative approval. And jump in, Clayton, if I misspeak. Tentative approval, and then continue it to we can actually continue it to a date and time certain at our May 12th meeting and bring back findings for approval, whether it's for that one or both signs that are being requested.
I don't see a single sign. I mean, it's either 2 or none, it seems to me, because one's a south approach, one's a north approach. They basically are the same things. It's 60 degrees off. You can't see it. So that really just kind of think where we are. It's either 2 or none, and then ask for reevaluation by the staff, which may take up to a year of the actual code, which could in fact generate approval or not. So. I am ready to make a motion, and if the vote is I could make the motion to deny. Doesn't necessarily mean that I would vote that way, by the way, but I would make that motion. And then if we wound up doing that, we got the answer. If not, we could have further discussion, I suppose.
How does the commission feel about finding that the north and the south wall actually are display areas? Because a lot of times they do put phones in those windows.
Yeah, I think that would be a staff support call, right? In other words, we have to kick that back to you guys.
I think part of it, we're helping staff here interpret the code, and I think that's part of our role. The staff has interpreted the code very literally, and that's also appropriate, but I think we're here to also interpret the code, and I see 2 actions. One, I'd like to see a motion that directs staff to look at the sign ordinance, especially when it comes to circulation and identification of buildings. And I think the code needs to address that. And then second of all, I'm thinking that we as a commission make a finding that there are 2 display areas and they can have signs above them.
I mean, I like that.
Interesting twist.
Two additional frontages.
Right.
Yeah.
So this may help or may not. If the interpretation is that these, both the north and south sides are building frontage, then they would not need a variance at all. So in that instance, you could take an action that would be making a determination that both the north and south are building frontages. And then you would also have to take a separate action on the appeal, because you do have this appeal outstanding. But if you make that determination, it does somehow make the appeal action irrelevant in some sense.
Well, what kind of action would we take on the appeal then?
It would be moot.
Because we have to take action on the appeal.
Right. Practically, it probably doesn't have much significance whether you then, if you were to go down this route, whether you then grant the appeal or deny the appeal. But I would suggest if that is where the commission's headed, that you make a formal determination that the north and south portion of this building are considered frontage under our code.
And then we deny the appeal.
Practically, I don't know that it has a huge difference other than, I guess, potential appeal rights.
Because if we were to make that determination, then the staff would go back and modify their decision and go forward, correct?
Deny the appeal.
Could staff read that language again where it said faces circulation open to the public, entrances? Sorry.
Building frontage means the wall area of a building which faces a circulation area open to the general public, which has an entrance in regular use by the general public, and or which has a main window display.
Okay, thank you.
So as I think through this too, a little bit, if you grant an appeal, you would need separate findings from the ones that are contained in the staff report. So it's probably an easier path to deny the appeal if in fact that's the commission's interest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Can I start out by making a motion from the commission to the staff to look at updating the zoning code in consideration of signage, especially for identification signs along roadways?
Is that the same subject?
Associated with buildings.
Associated with buildings, yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I realize this could be a year or so off, but I thought it'd be good if the commission would give staff direction. And is that adequate
Seconded.
direction? Okay, second. Is that adequate direction, EJ and Bennett?
Yeah, for updating the sign code, absolutely.
Okay.
First and a second. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on that.
Woodward?
Woodward.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes?
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that the planning commission make a recommendation to the zoning administrator that the north side and south side windows are display areas and is part of the code.
I think if in fact the motion is to allow the signs on the north and south, then that would be a determination that the north and south sides are building frontage as identified in our county code.
As he said.
Second.
First and a second, we'll do roll call vote on that.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes?
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then I would like to deny the appeal pursuant to the staff report.
Second.
Okay, first and second, we'll do a roll call vote.
I have a first from Commissioner Hauge and a second from Commissioner Woodward. Commissioner Powers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hauge?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Herzog?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did we button that up pretty good? Are we good there?
I think we did.
Okay, I just wanna make
Our
sure.
new planning commission clerk will certainly appreciate doing the minutes to this meeting.
Okay. Well,
She's,
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
she's a pro though, so.
yeah. I think you'll be pleased to know that the next agenda item has no action. And so, you know, sometimes we have challenging things. Do you need a break?
Go ahead.
Okay. And sometimes we,
If we could, there would be appeal rights on that last action.
okay, yeah, let me just read the appeal. The decision of the planning commission may be appealed by anyone who appeared at today's hearing and provided comment, or anyone that submitted written comments on this item. An appeal must be filed within 10 days of today's date and shall be accompanied by a filing fee of $641. Do you want a break? Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's not a problem, yeah. Okay, we're gonna go to our third timed item. Public notice signage, rebranding, informational item. Members of the public may now raise their hands. Press star 9 if you're calling in to begin queuing in for public comment on this item, which will not begin until the item presentation is complete. Bennett Smithhart, Associate Planner, will be presenting on this item. All right, welcome, Bennett.
Thank you. It's going to be pretty quick here. So give you a little background on how we got here. So this redesign was a part of the idea accelerator the county had for county staff to come up with ideas, and there's a grant funding to give various staff members funding to implement there. I believe one of them that was awarded was like drones, some kind of drone process improvement with our staff that works with drones and photography. So I was one of the 10 winners of grant winners of this. So I got funded basically money to redesign our public noticing signs, which you might have noticed back here.
Yeah.
The old one is on the right and the new one's on the left, so you can actually see the new one. So I travel a little bit, and I'll go to some areas and you'll see how different jurisdictions notice things, not necessarily in California, just around. So basically just copied a couple of their ideas, how they use the big letter and bright colors to help the public identify that. So my colleagues over in Document Solutions came up with the new design, and we just wanted to bring it before your commission, before we take it public. I just want to note, no policy or procedure changes, just strictly graphics. But that is it, and they're in the back page of your staff report. They're all the primary colors, have a big letter, so all the folks nearby can identify this. As being a suburban county, a lot of our buildings are set back further than urban counties, so I feel like it'd be good to, make it clear to neighbors that, there's something that's gonna happen on their property potentially next door or in their community, so this will help the public a little bit, I believe. That was it.
Yeah, if I could just add,
Absolutely.
thank you to Bennett for coming up with this idea. Great idea. Great for public outreach. We do also, in our ordinance also requires us to place development pending signs. When a development application comes in, code requires that the developer puts up either a 4x4, 4 foot by 4 foot, or 4 by 8 foot sign on the property after their application is submitted. And then this is, as required by, the government code and our ordinance is to post the property for projects. But yeah, I think, clearly, much more visible, get folks' interest. So thank you.
I did want to notice there is a QR code on there. So you basically just pull up your phone camera and shine it on there or point it there. It'll pop up a web page, and that's the page with all of our agendas, so you can go and find the staff report. So a little bit easier for members of the public to get to the staff report just using their smartphone.
So would the 4x4 signs be using these colors?
Nope, no changes to the development pending signs, just
Because
to
we heard
these.
today that they didn't see that sign for 16 months.
Yeah, I mean, this will, I believe they often do both the development pending signs and these, so it'll supplement the development pending sign with a little color.
Right, yeah, the development pending signs actually have a plastic sleeve on there where these notices would slip into, so you would have both.
I love the QR code now that you don't need a separate QR reader, you can just use your phone.
Yes.
It makes it so much easier. I think we're all used to that now after the pandemic with the restaurants and the
Yeah, the
QR codes
menus.
and the menus, so I think that's a fantastic addition. And nearsighted people like myself now don't have to pull over, take a picture, and then blow it up so we can see what it says. So I think it's brilliant design, really good. And I love the color,
Yes.
the different color coding.
Definitely give all the
Great
credit
idea.
to Document Solutions in there. I think it was Danielle Apple who designed it, so yeah, did a great job with the design.
One question I have is the QR code. Does one have the ability to get notified about any updates to that project? So if I do the QR code, does it take me to a place where I can put in my email address or a phone number where I can be fed information if there's any changes or hearings or anything related to that?
So we have a set website that it goes to. Basically, it has, you'll scan it, and you'll see zoning administrator, planning commission, or board, so you can find your staff report from there. So we have this page that things can be added to this page.
Okay.
So if there's a big project coming, we can work with, IT staff to get a new link put on there. So if it's something big, then they can have a dedicated website for that.
Okay.
And that'll take us directly there.
Nathan, that technology isn't dynamic, so it'll feed you one way, one thing from that feed. So it's not gonna sign you up or send you emails or anything, but they can change it to be dynamic to whatever they wanna show you.
Yeah, great. That's great. And then one thought I had was, it'd be great if we had these little symbols and even colors on our proposals or on our staff reports to help indicate a connection to what we're addressing. But I love it. Great job.
Thank you.
Agreed. I think this is a good step forward.
Agreed, and the QR codes were fantastic, so super excited for it to be enacted, so great job.
Yep, so you should start seeing the rounds in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Bennett? Or-
That's it.
Okay.
Simple and easy, no vote.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Oh,
We take public comment on this.
oh, yeah. That's right. Okay, let's open it up for public comment. Anyone here in the audience? Is there anyone online? Okay, we'll close public comment. Invite staff back up. Anything to share?
No additional
Okay.
comments.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting now.